your guide to the truth. TheNewAmericanMedia.com.
Broadcasting to you live from the Milky Way galaxy, the solar system, third rock from the sun, the continent of North America, the country of the United States of America, the California Republic, Los Angeles, to be very specific. Hello, everybody. My name is Brian Engelman, and welcome to another episode of Agree to Disagree here on the TNAM Radio Network, here at TheNewAmericanMedia.com. Yes, we are the New American Media because the old American media failed me. So 4.5 years ago, I got this little thing started. We have a 10-year plan, and we're about a half year away from hitting the midway point. And it's funny, we do these shows sometimes and completely forget that anyone even listens. It's hilarious. Almost 500,000 views on YouTube. Thank you to every one of you. If you let those videos play on YouTube, it's like throwing a penny into our wishing well. We've never officially asked for $1. We have never really done much advertising at all to speak of. We haven't done a Kickstarter. We haven't done a GoFundMe. Any of that stuff. Of course, that it will be something that's needed to kick it up a notch coming up here in the future for us. But yeah, it's funny. You look back and 4.5 years have elapsed since we began here. So there's a lot of good content on there. Our guest for tonight is going to be John B. Wells. If you're familiar with our show, there's a chance you're familiar with Mr. Wells. He is a friend of the program. We've been having John on, I don't know how long. Several years, multiple years. Back when John first got going on Coast to Coast AM, we reached out and said, hey, who's this new guy? I can tell he's really reserved and he's holding back, but I could tell he was on the same page. So he's been a guest of ours for several years since, and we have a lot of cool content on our website. So I want you to go to thenewamericanmedia.com. On the right-hand side, there's a TNAM radio button link. That's where you would listen to this program live. It's right here. We're not on Blog Talk. Well, we have a Blog Talk network that we're starting, but this one is all kind of contained in-house, and you listen to it at thenewamericanmedia.com. Underneath is our Facebook and Twitter feed. On Facebook, you can do a search for The New American Media, and then like the page. On Twitter, we're at American_media_. And as I mentioned, if you subscribe to youtube.com/thenewamericanmedia, let those advertisements play, maybe even click on a few, watch the commercial for Mission Impossible or whatever the heck it is. Sorry, free plug. Leave your comments. Our program continues in perpetuity. Just because our show is done, we want to read what you're thinking about the show. You know, we say, as a tagline over here, seeking truth, challenging dogma, and having fun. Join the mostly civil conversation. Just keep it mostly civil, you know? And we've had a lot of good feedback from a lot of our programs, but they're all archived on all of those platforms I just told you about. A lot of the stuff John and I have discussed over the past few years. I mean, it's just a building set of criteria and stories and connecting the dots that, you know, when you look back through it all, maybe it helps you get a little bit of perspective sometimes. You know, and it's interesting we're bringing John back today because, man, did you see that they found a piece of an airplane? They found an airplane wing with barnacles on it, or mollusks, or whatever the heck they are. Some sort of sea creatures. Then I just heard that there's a piece of a suitcase. Okay. Well, one of the shows John and I did, I remember John's, he has aviation experience, and we talked about missing Flight 370. And it had been a very big mystery up until today. Now, the question is, do we believe that what we're seeing now is actually from that plane? I don't know. I'm not saying absolutely yes. I'm not going to rule it out. I'm going to discuss it. And we're going to discuss it with John as well as a bunch of other topics. I mean, Jade Helm, hey, that thing kicked off with a silent whimper. We got another month and a half of it, though, and I heard one of John's shows about it, and it was kind of frightening. Think SkyNet from the Terminator movies. Got to talk about the Republican race for president. Got to talk about Hillary and all of her missing stuff. Planned Parenthood. Anyway, let's bring John in, and we'll get right into it.
John Wells here.
John, this is Brian Engelman. You are on Agree to Disagree Live. How are you doing today, sir?
Oh, doing all right. How are you? Happy Friday.
Yeah, I'm living the dream. It's been one of those weeks, so it is indeed a happy Friday for me. I don't know if you have a cup of tea in front of you or not, but
I've got the kettle on.
yeah, I put a couple ice cubes in my kettle and maybe a little bourbon, relaxing. It has just been one of those weeks. What can I say? But hey, it's good to have you back. I was just kind of introducing to everybody and explaining that you've been coming on this program for years and years, since way back in your Coast days. So it's good to talk with you again.
Good to talk with you. Yeah, you were, if not the first, then very close to the first. If you weren't the first, I can't remember who the first was that invited me to come on their program during the Coast days, and so yeah, man, we're almost family.
Hey, you know what, brother from another mother. I was talking about Coast, obviously. I never gave you the proper intro because I always do these different ways. I don't read it off of a script, but you were a voice that would have been heard on JFK. You've done the voice to the voiceover work for Unsealed Alien Files, correct? Wait, you're breaking up. Are you there?
I'm breaking up.
Ah, okay.
I don't know what's going on with the comms down here at the epicenter of the world, the crossroads of crisis, Dallas, Texas. But the mobile service was terrible, and
well, we got you now. We got you now,
yeah,
and we got a backup number if we need to.
I try to stay away from mobile service, but when you use it, it's good if it works. But anyway, what are you?
Yeah, I was saying
week.
You were on Unsealed Alien Files doing the voiceover work on that. I was confirming that I got the name correct off the top of my head.
Oh, you got it.
Okay, and you were also on Coast to Coast for a little bit of time there where you were able to kind of wave out your hand and say, hey, everybody, my name's John. If you think I'm interesting, follow me. And since then, you have started Caravan to Midnight. So are there any new projects you're working on before I get you to tell us about what's new at Caravan to Midnight?
Well, you say, do you ask if anything is new? We are kind of crackling up a little bit.
Yeah.
It's the thing is to no, we continue to have conversations with really excellent people, and in fact, recently I thought it was kind of cool to speak with Laura Eisenhower.
Oh, you guys were able to set that one up.
Yeah, and
fantastic. I've been talking with Laura and with you for years, saying, guys, you got to meet. Are you cool if I exchange your information with you? Yep. Okay, cool. I didn't know that one had come up yet. That's fantastic.
Yep, it was just yesterday, in fact, and so
she's a trip.
Yep, indeed. It's a good trip, though.
Absolutely.
And but we've been speaking with a lot of people. It was a lot of fun to speak with Paul Hellyer, the former Canadian Defense Minister, the one who declared the UFOs are as real as the airplanes flying overhead, and many economists and very interesting people, all with inevitably it's the same focus, and that is that the coalescence of events that are taking place all around us and our inability to actually affect any change, even disclosure. People are under the impression that, if we can just get disclosure, it'll change everything. Well, only if the people are interested in disclosure. It's almost as though what people don't know, they sense, and I'm just seeing sort of mass withdrawal from the field of angst, if you will. I've spoken with 2 or 3 people who have just said, it starts off innocently enough with, what do you do? And then eventually I tell them about the program. And that sounds interesting, but they have that look on their face. And I just tell them, the first thing you need to ask yourself seriously, do you really want to know? If you don't, then this is probably not for you. And 3 people have said, I really don't. I mean, I'm just happy with my life, and I know stuff is messed up, but I just don't want to think about it. I don't want to deal with it at all. It's like, well, you may not be interested in dealing with it, but it's very interested in dealing with you, and it will. So here's the website address. Check it out. Go to the YouTube channel.
And what are those websites, by the way? Give those to everybody, because since your Coast days, you've built you've built your empire on your own terms, kind of like we've done over here. Explain the best ways to follow Caravan to Midnight and all of the content that you guys have been cranking out.
Well, we have a spectacular news section in there as well, and anybody can see it. It's a member service because we don't have sponsors. So you just go to caravantomidnight.com. No numbers, no missing letters in midnight, just Caravan to Midnight, just the words, .com. And if you like what you see there, you can go over to our YouTube channel, and there are a bunch of programs on there. Also, there are 350, I thought I heard 351 programs as of, I'm thinking it was today.
That's great.
So, it's a very inexpensive membership. A lot of people say it's underpriced, but it's like a lot of people don't have much disposable income these days, and we want as many people as possible to be able to have access to it. And that's why we put stuff on the YouTube channel as well.
Yeah, I've been noticing some of your content's been going over there, obviously, to support. It's kind of like PBS. Every now and then they have their fundraising drive, and it's like, hey guys, there are operating expenses here, and we operate differently because we're not part of the system that makes the other channels also similar. So it's a double-edged sword in that way, but this is the way of the future. The days of being able to completely manipulate a very strategic message and opposition message so that you could just dance along arguing while the policy's implemented, that whole system is out the window. We're not going back to that short of some sort of EMP calamity. And, it really is fantastic. And some of the content, like you were saying then, if you're a member, you get access to all of it. But you've been popping a few more of the videos available on YouTube, at least snippets of it or hours of it. Have you found that more people have been starting to find you through that method as well, and then coming over to the main site?
It certainly has been helpful. It's always helpful to have a presence on YouTube, but again, we don't want to be just all us, me. It's like we like to put stuff up there that's free because some people simply cannot afford $5 a month. That's what we charge for it. And like I say, there's about 350 programs in there already in archive. So $15 for 3 months, $30 for 6 months, $60 for a year. It's really not that much of a stretch.
Oh, and there it goes. It is hilarious. Without fail, when I do shows with John B. Wells, you can go back in the archives. I'm not even sure which ones did and which ones didn't. But we have had a series of interesting technological glitches. Wow, now it's dialing and not dialing. This gets even better. Yeah, I'm the producer, engineer, host. Oh, there we go. Yeah, so...
If you wish to leave a message after the following signal, please do so. And at some near point in future...
There, now you're getting John's voicemail. Yeah, we have the oddest technological glitches when we do our programs. It really is uncanny. If you go back in the archive and just take a look, it would be neater. And I think it would be a lot more cool if I were pretending and I had some sort of filter and I was garbling up parts of conversations and then dropping calls myself. That'd be fun. That'd be funny. I swear to you. I'm barely skilled enough to run this when it's operating correctly, let alone when glitches occur. And with John, I'm telling you, there's something about it. But we'll try him again. We'll get him back in. We do have an alternate phone number. Actually, like 4 alternate numbers for him as well.
NSA, how can I help you?
Welcome back, sir. Last time I accused you of leaving radioactive cookie crumbs from the FBI website over to our program. What were you into yesterday, John? What's going on lately with you? What are you visiting online?
What am I visiting online?
Yeah, you must be checking out some very intriguing sites to really ping the NSA's interest these days. What was it, sir?
I don't know about that. I don't think it was a very good idea to go to CIA.gov, and I went, Kids Zone? What the hell is this? So I clicked on that, so maybe they thought I was trolling for children on the CIA.gov site. But I can tell you the computers acted pretty weird for a while. I thought, what the hell are they telling the children? I want to find out, what are they telling the children? Listen, you join CIA, you get to do things like, listen, when we go over to the Middle East, we don't just bounce rocks. Seriously. I mean, the whole place rocks, and CIA shows up there. You're going to have yourself a great career, kitty. So think about it. I mean, I didn't know what to expect.
Hey, maybe looking for cousins or family members. Like, hey, I got a good career option here. And had I known when I was a tyke, maybe I would have went that path as well. But before the glitch occurred, we were just talking about Caravan to Midnight. That all your content's up there. A little bit of stuff on your YouTube channel, and if they like that, definitely subscribe. A couple bucks a month, and it's really good way to scour for the important news that maybe isn't happening through a lot of the other outlets. And that's kind of what we liked when you brought to Coast AM and when you bounced it over to Caravan to Midnight. I had a question, though. Caravan to Midnight, the meaning behind that phrase.
Well, it's actually the title of an album from 1978 by an extraordinarily good guitar player named Robin Trower. But the music on that record didn't really seem to have anything to do with the title of the album, which was common in those days. It still is in some ways, but usually there's a tie-in somewhere. I couldn't find a correlation. So I came across it some years later, and I thought, oh, there's the name of that record again. And I thought, so I bought the domain name in like 2006. I had no idea what I was going to do with it at the time, really didn't. But what it means, really, is that we are effectively walking single file toward midnight, where everything that used to be is gone, and what is to be is now coming at that one little mark, where between yesterday and today. And also, there's the atomic clock of the atomic scientists.
Oh,
you get the bulletin of the atomic scientists and their doomsday clock. And I thought, yep, can mean many things. A caravan to midnight. Well, let's go, because one thing's for sure, we're going anyway. So might as well just mount up and let's do it.
Yeah, some bands have titles that are totally unrelated, and other people like Muse, they named their album Drones. They went on the Harp tour. They have a song called MK Ultra. I mean, if there's any band hitting you over the head with a frying pan of knowledge, it's the band Muse. Are you? I know that you used to do a lot of the what was it? Dallas drive time rock and roll DJ duties.
No, that's just where I started. I did 10 to 2 at night for 6 months, and then they put me into afternoon drive, and it actually it worked out pretty well.
Well, I was wondering, are you familiar with Muse at all? Have you really checked out what they've been up to for the past couple albums?
No, Muse? No,
Yep.
Not really.
Yeah,
I know I like them.
My highest recommendation to go back, I think that entire album kind of themed around 1984 by George Orwell. I mean, if there's an awake band and if there's a guest you guys should reach out to Matt Bellamy over there at Muse. I mean, they are doing some awesome stuff. But while we're clarifying the name Caravan to Midnight, also, what does the B stand for in John B. Wells?
Oh, it just depends on who you're talking to.
Yep. See, I have one of those last names, John, where it was like, I was Ingle this, I was Ingle that, I was Ingle and I'm not going to repeat them because a lot of them are football names and they're mostly cuss words or slang for stuff. So that's how my nicknames usually came out, kind of a hybrid of my last name. But you're saying that's what it was with your middle name?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, the only reason that I don't know. A friend of mine who's now deceased, he just passed away last year. He was actually he just introduced me one time to somebody and used my first name, my middle initial, and my last name, and I thought, wow, I think I just grew about two inches taller with that introduction. It was ridiculous, And then I thought, John Wells goes by too quick. And people go, is that John Mills? And I'm like, no. Or is that Welsh? I'm like, no. Is that Wales? No. But, when you put the B in there, it kind of slows it down a little bit. Besides, who's George Scott without the C?
All right. I mean, for some reason, I thought of Jesus H. Christ. I've heard other people say that. It's not one of my favorite phrases, but yeah.
Well, it's all right. The H stands for holy, so it's fine. Go ahead.
Well, we were talking several shows ago, John, about this airplane that disappeared and the 1,000 theories that sprung up because MH Flight 370 just went off the radar. It just went off the grid. It went off the rails. It's done. Just poof, disappeared. And I know in the past year, this happened last year in, what was that, March of 2014, I believe?
Yeah.
Now they've allegedly found a piece of the plane. I know you have an aviation background, so maybe if you want to start from your aviation background and interest following this story, what do you think's going on with these new revelations that have been coming out this week?
Well, I suspect they're going to find out that it was it either crash landed or in the ocean because it ran out of fuel, and I don't know. I haven't really. I didn't look beyond. It's interesting you should ask about that. If you're talking about 370, then from Lumpur, that's a weird deal, and this is why it's weird. It's not just the disappearance of the aircraft. We just go with what we know. So once you eliminate the impossible, whatever remains must be the truth, right?
Yeah.
According to this thing, I like some things about. I don't care too much for public radio, but I do enjoy some things on public television. The Masterpiece Theater series, stuff like that.
Right.
But they had a very interesting program that dealt with this very thing, Flight 370. And problem number one, it's a presentation over the public airwaves. Number two, the map the map over which they transposed this red line that was the path the aircraft took, where it kind of did this hairpin maneuver and went over here and then dropped off their scope.
Right.
When you consider everything now they've lost 3 planes. How many planes has Malaysian Airways lost? Is 3 planes in a year or something?
Yeah, there was the one with the Ukraine that was flying over some zone where Putin was there, and the U.S. was covertly there, and the UN was. Everybody was in Ukraine for that period, and a plane got shot down allegedly by one side or the other, or it was a third option that we haven't quite figured out yet. But yeah, it's been a weird year.
I've heard stuff like it landed at Diego Garcia. I've heard that no, that was actually the one that got shot down in Ukraine. It's like, let me ask you this: what if it was just a nutcase with a bomb and he just blew the plane up?
Very possible.
Now, the question is, would anybody report this? Answer, they would not report it unless it served them in some way. Everyone must understand this. I don't say this with any pleasure or smugness. It's more like with despair. You cannot trust what you hear over mainstream media. Forget it. You cannot trust it. If you will take just a moment to look at who is married to whom, who is in major mainstream media, and people that work inside government, you will be astounded. There is so much nepotism. How about it's practically incest?
I say it's a lot like a big orgy.
Sorry.
I was just gonna say I call it kind of like a big oily, disgusting orgy with just hands and body parts all over the place, and it's something I don't want to be a part. I don't even want to be in the same room or see pictures.
It's a Crisco cluster foxtrot. So yeah, it's
as if that could have gotten any worse. Something about adding Crisco just made me almost retch in my mouth. Thank you, Johnny. Appreciate that.
Oh man, listen! Don't get me started. It's Friday. It's been, I had to stop for a minute and go. Let me make sure I'm not losing my mind. Okay, I think it's all right, but I'm still watching.
No, but
and that part right there is that's the proof that I'm still sane. But look, this Ukraine deal is really quite serious. Ukraine means edge, is my understanding. It's always belonged to Russia. The damn thing has only existed since 1991, I think. So that's Putin's turf, and we went in there screwing around is what we did. We want to destabilize him. Look, it is so complicated on the one hand and so absolutely simple on the other that it gives you the deer looking at the forest fire thing. I mean, the thing is catatonic in its confusion, so it just looks at the forest fire or looks at the oncoming, station wagon or whatever. And that's kind of where we are, because we're looking at this, and you see, and you know what they're doing. Most people, if they are just aware of the events that have happened, somebody out in the middle of nowhere, just get him away from his farming for a second and ask him, he'd probably say, well, that sounds to me like we're trying to take him over. It's like, well, we are trying to take him over. Who was it? I can't call the author. It was Rappaport, I think. Yes, it was. I think somebody of that caliber, and I think John's pretty good, was saying that this whole deal with us being upset with Iran is because we wanted our boy in there like we had during the days of the Shah, and that's all there is to it. So we've made them into a big enemy because they will not be a vassal state of the U.S. And it deeply pains me. I understand there's some way to say, Mr. Wells, you just sit down there and I'm going to fill you in on the facts of life, pal. There's zillions of countries out there that are nothing but barbaric and they're ready to kill us. It's like, yes, and we have to, we have to maintain a delicate balance between getting to something that could escalate and pull some more of these morons in and have the thing escalate to a nuclear situation, or we have to just manage things. At the same time, we also have to do business with these people because they have a viable economy and there's billions of dollars being moved around, and right now we're not moving the billions of dollars, and they're getting mad, but we need something from these people. And so then you okay, all right, thanks. Sorry, Admiral, I didn't mean to pop off.
Oh, Admiral, I thought you were talking about Jeb Bush. I mean, I swear we've seen this policy before.
Well, whatever, whoever it is that's, got the power to talk to me like that. Sit down and be quiet for a minute. All right,
it's a short list, but it's a significant list.
Well, there are some people on it. I can't think of them at this moment. But anyway, what I'm getting at is now throw in the part about what did we just give Iran?
What didn't we give Iran? What did we not give them?
And what are we supposed to think? What do we think that they think about what we just did? Oh yeah, auspiciously it is that they got their way. But what more did they get? What does this say about the strategic positioning of all of these players? Russia is right over there. These briefcase nukes and all this other stuff, no telling what else. I mean, nuclear rounds you can fire out of a 106 millimeter recoilless rifle. We've had those since the 60s, probably the 50s, but the 60s for sure. I mean, it's not that much trouble to get a nuclear device. It's just not. They probably already have it.
Well, and after the collapse of the Soviet Union, this stuff went missing, and it was sold to the highest bidder. It was, it was if you're in a bad neighborhood and somebody dropped a case load of their product that they're moving. Guess what? It's going to disappear off of where it fell off the truck between Block A and Block B. Somebody's picking up all of it, and then you're going to see that moved around the area to the highest bidder real fast.
Exactly.
And that's what happened in Russia.
And if they can't use what they have now, I mean, the B something A-bomb or a nuclear weapon that we have. I can't remember what the nomenclature is at this moment, but the designation. But the thing is, the only reason they would want to make any fissile material is if they wanted to make either make more, or their stuff has decayed to the point where it's really not usable and it's not a reliable yield anymore. Here, I'm going to change phones real quick.
Yeah. And
okay, there we go. Is that better?
Yo, there you are. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No, it's fine. Even a little louder, if it were.
I talk on the phone too much.
Tell me about it.
I'd rather just save it for you,
Tell me about it.
Yeah. So anyway, these people are unbelievably adept at keeping the confusion going all the time. And it's difficult. It's sort of like walking into a recording studio. If you just walk up to that console, you just say, oh, my gosh. But what you don't realize is it's an identical channel strip repeated 48 times. It looks like a sea of knobs and faders and all this stuff. But it's really just one module with a few controls on it multiplied by however many channels you have. That's all. And it's your choice. You want 16, 24, 32, 64, 128? What do you want? Well, I want the 128 channel console. Well, that'll cost you $1 million, so that sort of thing. Half a million, certainly.
That's a great
Yes,
explanation. That's a great explanation. I'm sitting here looking at my dinosaur Yamaha AW16G.
Cool.
What is that? 16 channels? Yeah, 12 channels, and then it doubles down for the other 4. Yeah, and it's you're absolutely right. It's either very complicated, and you sit down and you're like, I would have no idea. I'd feel like Homer Simpson trying to stop a nuclear meltdown. I would have no idea what button to press.
And even more to the point, Brian, it's that you are confronted by this sea of knobs, but what you don't realize is that each one of those channels does exactly the same thing.
Yep.
But taken all together, it looks like this monstrously complicated apparatus,
and it's really
not.
Exactly.
And I use this just metaphorically by saying it's the same operations over and over. They just have their channels, so to speak, run through different effects. Oh, here's an echo over here. And there's a flanger that kind of distorts things just a little, but you can really pretty much make out most of it, but it's a little warped. It's the same deck of cards. And these guys really know how to play. The problem is, and I mean this, their sins are beginning to overtake them.
Yep.
They are running out of room. Do we think that the price of gold, for example, went down possibly because, if these reports are correct, one was submitted to me by Bill Holdings. I get a bunch of them. Mr. Dent also, Mr. Meyer. The price of gold has dropped quite a bit. It's down around, I don't know, $1,090-something bucks the last time I looked at it. But it was lower than that. Now, when you get a report that says for every ounce of actual gold that exists, there it is, there's an ounce of gold. Wow. There are 100 1-ounce gold certificates issued, meaning that what they've done with the gold is effectively they've sold interests in their hotel for 130% of the 100% they actually own. So do we think that maybe they would reduce the price of gold so they could use fewer dollars to retire those cash-ins? Yes, they would. And as soon as they beat it down enough for it to become manageable, then the price of gold will go back up again. It's insane. I do not understand how anybody can think that things can go on like they are now. For them to continue to operate this way, Brian, they must have a worldwide currency, except for the exceptions. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me at all if England's stuck with the pound, so to speak, and a few other ones. But the majority, Western Europe and Eastern Europe, Russia will resist it because they know the game. The Russians are not stupid people at all. They're brilliant people. And they're tough people, and they know this game we're playing for what it is. But the only way that these so-called international bankers and European elites, and the elites of European descent primarily, and now they've sucked the Chinese into it, or who are figuring it out, they are figuring out that they have not been at this capitalist game very long, and their stuff is cratering. They lost like $3.2 trillion in like about 3 weeks.
They shut down their stock market just like happened in the United States. Oh, it was a glitch. Oh, it was a hack or nope, not a hack. It was a glitch or whatever they want to claim. Collusion is afoot. You can feel it.
Well, and they've got one more play. And I realize I'm sticking my neck out here. Nobody wants to be wrong, but I'll tell you, I would like to be wrong about this one. But I think they've got one more play, and that is one more play to control this world, which is what they want. Once people get their minds around the fact that concepts like God are not concepts, they're real. And when you put your trust in these people who have no moral compass whatsoever, this is what happens. They have one play left, and that is to collapse the economy and bring out a single currency, and to merge all of these economies together, because the numbers are not working for these people. There is not enough money in that you can even create. You can only create this amount of money with the stroke of a pen. You cannot do it in goods and services when you've got people that have more debt than their whole damn country's worth, production-wise. And they'll tell you for the gross domestic product. It's like, yeah, for what period of time? I'll give you a hint. Somebody just published something, and I can't quote the source. I can't. I would, but I can't because I don't remember. I read a lot of stuff. But it was this lady who decided to look on her Social Security. your Social Security statement. And she said in her article, she stated in her article that, well, greeting seemed innocent enough. Then she gets into it and it says, you're going to get about $2,216 per month. And she's like, well, that's a good thing. But then she sees the asterisk, and that's at age 70, right? So she notices this asterisk, and she looks at it, and it says, I'm paraphrasing it, this is not the exact language, but believe me, this is close enough, and you'll get the effect. It's like, by 2033, the U.S. government calculates it'll only be able to actually pay 77% of what you're actually owed. And she was a little bit indignant. Oh, so you're telling me I get $77 instead of $100? Well, yeah, that's right. Then she decided to look at one earlier from 2009, and what they had said in 2009 was by 2041, they'd only be able to provide 78%. So you lost 8 years and 1 point. And that's exactly, and if you just extrapolate that to all areas of business, these insane derivatives and all this stuff, there isn't any foundation to this economy at all, which is why Obama pushed for his Trans-Pacific Partnership deal that the Republicans were more than happy to give him. Why is that? Why the secrecy over the language? I'll give you my idea of what it might be. I believe the reason that the various Congress people had to go into the basement and be escorted by a guard who would stand there ensuring that they did not have a phone, they did not take notes out of the place with them, and they could read it one page at a time. People, this is not woo-woo. This isn't, I'm not making this up.
This happens.
One page at a time.
This is a private library where Congress is taken in, ensured that this doesn't get out. This is the utmost highest national security issue brought in.
And what could that be?
I wonder.
And what could it be that's of such a high value, Brian?
Oh, I don't know. The early results for who America's Got Talent or one of those.
No, it's nothing like that. It's going to be the true condition. It's going to be a description of what will happen to us if we don't get this deal done. And it was grim enough for every Republican who was like, we'll get in there and we'll kick his ass. Yeah, we'll turn back Obamacare. We'll stop all this ridiculous immigration. We'll win. We'll do it for you. And then they got in there and they didn't do anything that they said they were going to do. Nothing. And the so-called people, that's us, are standing out here going, what? What just happened? And more to the point, they went over and talked to Justice Roberts over there and said, we need a little help here. And so he says, the Affordable Care Act is completely legal. Okay? Period. End of story. Mm-hmm. Bye. Next case. I'm telling you, there's no way out of this one. I wish I could say there. I mean, we'll go through it, and there will be the other side of it. And I'm not particularly afraid of this.
I kind of feel the same.
I just don't want to behold the ugliness, and it's going to be ugly.
I kind of feel exactly the same way, John.
I just don't want to look at the ugliness, and it's going to be awful. If it goes as far as I think it's going to, it's going to be terrible. And people are looking at each other now like they don't trust each other. I know I'm talking all over you, but give me a second here. They're looking at each other like, I think if you were able to get all the way down through those onion layers, what they're really doing is they're looking at each other going, you didn't do anything. You didn't do anything to stop this. Nothing. And I hate myself, and I hate you. I mean, we are beginning to hate each other in this country. And we have better turn that off, because that way madness and every other kind of crazy you can imagine will be visited on us. I really believe this. Look at the way people act now. They're scared of everything. They're afraid that a cop pulls them over. They're liable to wind up getting killed over whatever, a license plate missing on the front or a sticker out of date. That's a hell of a thing to get killed over. It's just
I think they were warming it up, John. I think they were warming it up in Ferguson, in Baltimore, at Bundy Ranch. They're testing this out in different scenarios, seeing what works, what doesn't. I think if this is fully implemented, I think Obama's going to go for it. I think he's going to. If it ends up where all of the bookshelves start falling at the same time, there's a big earthquake and everything starts collapsing into the center. Yeah, I think they would absolutely try to seize on that and turn this into some sort of Marxist utopia. or New World Order, one world government, one world religion, one world currency, one world control and power. I could see people making a move for that. Whoever happens to be president. I could have seen Bush Jr. going for it. I could see the next person going for it. I think the position of president is essentially a puppet. But I think there is something you could say about John Boehner and Mitch McConnell. There's now a motion kind of brewing through Congress to get them removed immediately from their positions of power. I mean, do you think that's just people that don't get how serious this is? Or do you think it's people that are not as corrupt as they have already become?
Well, I think some of these people have, like Senator McCain, I think he and Graham and McConnell need to go immediately. I don't think Hillary Clinton should be let anywhere near government ever again. But, she's not a congressperson, but I'm just talking about that whole club of incumbents that have just been there forever. These people need to go. They really do.
Pelosi
now,
and
that
Boxer.
said, it's going to be tough to, if they're gone every, say, 8 years, let's say every eight years, that's your limit. If you want to come back, you got to lay out at least 4 years, and then you can come back, but that's it. Okay. That would work out all right, but it's going to be a little bit difficult to monitor the ideologies of the people that will replace them. Which is why people keep voting them in, because they go, well, the devil you know is better than the devil you don't know. It's like, not necessarily. It might be a slightly nicer devil.
Well, it's like you said about the farmer in Middle America. You ask him what you think's going on in Crimea or over in Russia or whatever, Ukraine. You're like, well, seems like they're fixing to take it over. I would rather pull random names out of a hat and get a teacher, get a construction worker, get a farmer, it doesn't matter. I would rather just take a normal bunch of uncorrupted people and say, hey, can you step up for a couple minutes and try to defend this country against really messed up stuff? Cool. Here you go. And I think that's kind of why people are supporting Donald Trump the way that they are. I mean, how do you make sense of the race for Republican president, and with Bernie Sanders and Hillary? It really seems like as much as Jeb Bush and Hillary Clinton are forced upon us, that's the last thing that the voting American public actually wants. I mean, maybe that's the optimist in me, but I actually think that the country doesn't want anything like that. What do you think?
Well, for Donald Trump to have been as successful as he has been, there's going to have to be it doesn't matter where you are. I mean, whether you're in the camera department of your local chain department store, or whether you're on the factory floor somewhere building mobile homes, or whether you're on another factory floor building the most advanced aircraft ever made that we know of. You're not going to be free of politics. And Donald Trump is already a politician to be able to have done the deals that he's done and amass, $1 billion worth or whatever it is. I don't know what it is, but it's in the nine figures.
Yeah, I've heard different. I've heard some funny stories that some of it he attributes to his Trump brand name, and that varies depending on the mood he's in that day. What he thinks the Trump brand name is actually worth: $2 million, $6 million. I've heard somewhere from $3 to $11 billion, and I mean, maybe people consider that as one of the reasons why they might vote for him, saying he's not bought off by Boeing and Monsanto and, go down the list of huge corporations. They might be looking at him like he has his own money. He doesn't need to sell out, kind of like Jesse Ventura in Minnesota, maybe.
Well, he might be able to do something, but Jesse Ventura, as much as I don't know him personally, so I'm not going to, I can't say, well, I like him personally, but And people who say, well, I'm diametrically opposed to some of my best friends' ideologies, is like, okay, I mean, this may be primitive thinking, but how can you be friends with someone? Do you mean acquaintances who get along, or do you mean friends? How can you be friends with someone that's diametrically opposite of your, not necessarily your politics, because maybe that's not your life? I mean, why would you do that unless you had to deal with them at some point? The thing is that people will say that the presidents are only figureheads, and yet they are still excited, and they do. A lot of people do. Most people do.
Well, I'm torn on that. I'm torn on that. Yeah, go ahead.
But they still have hopes that if a new candidate comes along, that this candidate may actually do something. I think the last candidate that tried to do anything was John Kennedy, and that could have been just a coalescence of crooked President Johnson and some other things going on there, and who knows? I mean, that was an equally convoluted period, but it was less convoluted because we trusted the government, so we didn't pay attention instead of wringing our hands all the time about stuff that we now know because of various media outlets, not the least of which certainly is the internet. So I think Trump would be very interesting to have in there. But which is he? Is he a figurehead, or is he a president that we think is going to get something done? If you don't believe that if you believe that some men are going to come in, maybe a couple of women too, and have a conversation with him right after he is inaugurated, and take as much time as is needed for him to understand things and have things explained to him, I think that we're being naive to think that day is ever going to come when that meeting doesn't take place and that a president is free to lead his country. They can't do that because they're only in there for 8 years at the most.
Yeah, that conversation's got to be heavy. Because you and me, we want to see. All right, I'll speak for myself. People like me, I want to sit on my high horse. I want to try to look at something through a moral compass and determine what I deem, if I were King Solomon, if I were a supreme ruler, that should not be that way because of this. And it's like, does that make me any better than what all these people do, which is want to do things their way? It gets tricky trying to figure out, was JFK the last person? Oh, by the way, JFK's speech is on the new Muse album called Drones. And they talk about...
I'll check it out.
Yeah, you got to check out the whole album. It's incredible. Go back their past 3 lyrics because they're hitting every major topic. But back to JFK, was the last real president that could have made a difference JFK, or was Ross Perot enough of a threat that weirdness happened? You were down in Texas when that was all happening, and that was a Bush family feud and Perot. Do you see similarities between George Bush, Ross Perot, and Donald Trump right now? Similarities or differences?
Only that they were businessmen first and then politicians, but I'm sure that when they were going through their evolution to whatever level of businessman they became, that they met many politicians and became friends with some and supported some, and therefore the entree into what we call politics was made. And yeah, a little bit. I don't think Trump would throw his hat into the ring if I don't think he would do that to lose. I don't know Donald Trump, but I get a sense about him that he is a pragmatic man. It's strictly business, and things that should be obvious to everyone, like an open border, and yet the whole country's in a state of a terror alert.
No doubt.
I mean, what a joke, man! Wouldn't you think if there was a terrorist lurking around, you might check their papers at the border or something?
Anybody that wants to believe in the concept that Republicans and Democrats both want a secure border, you don't have to look further than the past 6.5 years of Obama and look at George W. Bush after 9/11. Turns out our border's wide open. I mean, are you out of your mind to think the Republicans want that? Of course we know why the Democrats want it, because it's unregistered voters. It's just the demographic makeup. It's how it's going to play itself out 60% of the time, at least, if not 90%. No, I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. Let me wrap up this point on JFK, bounce back here, because I mentioned Muse, and I want to tell you what the speech was. I think it's track number 7 before it gets into a really aggressive song. The JFK speech says, "For we are I won't do my accent. For we are opposed... No, it's not that good. For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and natural resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised." And then the song starts. It's pretty badass, and I think JFK was definitely onto some stuff, and this wasn't over a madman named Oswald in your backyard. I'm convinced.
No, Oswald was CIA. Everybody knows that now. And he was. Everybody knows George W. Bush, or George H.W. Bush, was CIA almost probably from the beginning. Wouldn't surprise me at all if he was a member of CIA when it was signed into existence by Truman. Not at all. I mean, we know that Lee Harvey Oswald was, oh man. There's an interesting thing that came from, I don't remember the website, but it's part of the broadcast on Caravan to Midnight. But anyway, in 85 or 86, a Florida jury determined that there was CIA involved in the assassination of John Kennedy, and nobody said anything about it. So what we have here really, and this is not to denigrate President Kennedy at all, because I remember how he just seemed to be vilified by a lot of people. Well, the reason he was being vilified is that the press, even in those days, was being manipulated into, stories of potential scandals, and the PT-109 thing went for a while. They thought the New World Order thought that he was going to be their golden boy. It turned out that he was an independent thinker who thought that what they were doing was wrong, and he had his own problems. Well, so what? Every human being does. And just because whether he and Jackie were taking amphetamines to keep going, or whether he was running secretaries through there, or whatever it was, that doesn't take away from the. I don't think that should just neutralize the entire character of the man. I don't. And but he might have added to the end of his speech, which of course he couldn't. And it probably wasn't a good idea to say anything about it, because now, well, they're going to rub me out. I mean, look what happened right after John Kennedy was assassinated. Murdered by his own government. That's what I really mean.
That's another way to say it. Yeah.
That's my opinion. He was. Vietnam, almost immediately. Assassination right there at the very end of November, 63. In we go in April of 64.
Not even a year. The body's still laying. Whatever they said was the body still laying there in the ground. Yeah, if there was never a clearer message that you better stay on point. I was actually curious about the message in staying on point and the reminders. President Eisenhower, right before JFK, he was warning about that military-industrial complex. Did you get a chance to really delve deep into that with Laura Eisenhower, great-granddaughter of Ike Eisenhower?
Not really. I got the sense that she was pretty far removed from that stuff. We didn't get into his visitation. She remembered speaking to him, or he came to see her. But she's the great-granddaughter, so, by the time she came into the world, he was getting up there. So, were there any revelations regarding, long fireside chats that they had about UFOs and Roswell and all that? Negative.
Well, Eisenhower was warning us about the same thing, that as I read this and as you listen to that Muse album, you just kind of hear, it sounds very similar to the Eisenhower speech warning about the military-industrial complex. It's like both of these guys were saying it in their own way, warning us. And then by the time it got to JFK, it's like, we're not talking about this anymore, and we're going to show you.
Yeah, this guy's got too much charisma to be popping off like this, and he did. And the thing about it is, there's two things that are problematic for me, and they are these. Did anybody listen? President Eisenhower looked when he was talking about the shadow control mechanism exists and will persist. And he made those comments about the military industrial complex and the government taking long, warm showers together into the wee hours of the morning, which is what they've been doing ever since we got rid of John Kennedy. And I say we because it was Americans who did it. So, number two, when nobody listened, they did it anyway. They did it despite what two presidents now have said. They went ahead with their plan anyway, and it's why I come back to this. I like to say, Brian, the reason that anybody who is going to become an actor or an actress is going to study Greek theater. And the reason that we study Greek theater is because the stories never change. I always say this when I tell the story, and I've told it many times, but at least the Greeks had the sense to put masks on everybody so that you wouldn't fall in love with the bad people simply because they were better looking than the good people that were, you know what I'm saying? They just took that out of the equation. They put the masks on and told the story. The story was the thing, not the players.
Right.
They're just tools. Well, it's the same problems over and over again. It's greed, it's avarice, the willingness to screw somebody over big time, all the way to the grave, all the way to the wall, whatever, however many, to make sure that your family goes forward and that your wealth is protected and that you can build more.
So it's an active battle. It is an ongoing actual. It's a battle. It's a fight. It's subversion attempts. It is effective
you're
manipulation
exactly right. And it's the battle between good and evil, bro, because it's beginning to look like. I'm telling you, if you had told me 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, that I would ever be saying words like this to a man on his program, I'd looked at you as if you were crazy. But I have to tell you, because I didn't get it either in those days.
It took me a while, too.
I thought, well, it's biblical, pal. I hate to tell you this, I really do, because it's going to make a lot of people recoil, but there are all sorts of correlations in Scripture. Never before has this world been able to poison an entire ocean, for example. But the entire Pacific Ocean is being poisoned by the meltdowns at Fukushima. Oh, they didn't want to talk about, well, did it really melt down? It's like, it not only melted down, it not only melted through, it melted out. They found a piece of the core in Norway. And that story's a year and a half old. So,
hey, do you still have some of that stuff on your website, by the way? Some of those meters?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Tell us about that. That's actually a good chance to remind everybody. We're talking with John B. Wells from Caravan to Midnight. We're coming back to that quintessential moment, Fukushima. No, how do you say it, John? Fukushima.
Well, they say it's Fukushima.
Fukushima. Yeah, I never say it the right way.
It could very well be Fukushima. I don't know.
I go with my way because it just rolls off the tongue a little easier, and I don't give a damn. So, I will humbly bow to somebody should they become really upset that I'm butchering it intentionally. But, no, it's funny because while there's nothing funny about Fukushima, I was in New Mexico in building off-the-grid homes called Earthships. That's another guest I want you to book, John. Michael Reynolds, the founder of Earthships. 100% off-the-grid, self-sustainable homes out in New Mexico. Really metaphysical dude, interesting cat. But I was out there when Fukushima hit. And I remember calling back to LA to check and make sure everything was okay because we were getting tsunami warnings. And it was when I left the Sangre de Cristos Mountains. I was in the foothill of Taos, New Mexico, and this is a Native American holy place. I just left there knowing, okay, this must have been, April of 2011? Because now we're almost 4.5 years old as a site over here. And that's when I had the revelation. When Fukushima hit, when I was in New Mexico, I came back in April, and then in May I started the New American Media, and I had no idea what it was going to be. And in some ways I still don't, and in some ways I have it all mapped out, and we're ready to rock and roll. But yeah, I mean, Fukushima was a very quintessential moment for me personally, as that whole month just changed me as a human being. There was something that changed inside of me. My DNA was activated, however you want to phrase it. But yeah, as John's been on the program for the past couple years, we've talked about it because on Caravan to Midnight, you have a couple of useful items or tools regarding how we can determine and protect ourselves from different sort of things that could hurt us, from radiation nuclear, radiation electrical. What else do you still have going on at Caravan to Midnight, John?
We got a bunch of products on there they're just good tools. Many of them are. Most of them actually are for use immediately, but some of them are, like storable foods. We have a contact for that and water purification for that, and also we have Vince Mazur's and Mazur Instruments Geiger counters, and we're not like for that. Let's all put on our hats and our secret decoder rings. We don't do that, but we make sure that everybody in our crew has one of these available because they just shut down one. I can't remember the name of it. It's in Portland, Missouri. There weren't any releases, but they had a They had a little bit of an issue in one of their containment vessels. The radiation levels started going up, but they swear and declare that there was no release. So maybe there wasn't. But we have a crumbling nuclear industry here. Some of these plants were only made to run 30 years, and many of them have gone past that, and everybody's real hush-hush about it, and they're still putting in 6,000 cubic meters of nuclear waste every year, or were, before things started getting weird at the WIP site in New Mexico. I mean, we're using an energy source that has a really disgusting and extraordinarily dangerous byproduct, and these dumbasses just keep them running. So I think if you have a flashlight and you have an emergency radio, you need a Geiger counter too. You really do. And you probably need a good mask as well. And you need some storable food, and you need a way to purify water, because if there's a big hack, if there's an EMP, everybody worries about EMP. Well, let's say there is one. Well, guess what? All that stuff is controlled by computer down there at the water department and the gas company and obviously the electric company and so forth, all these smart meters. One EMP, none of your stuff's going to work. Nothing. You'd be doing good if you got a car out there with a set of mechanical points, a coil, and a battery that'll start. I mean, this is serious stuff, and that's why I made that biblical reference a while ago. It's like they say, oh well, man's always had the ability to destroy the whole world. It's like, really? I don't think so. Destroy the world by what? Run around with spears and bows and arrows and knives and then muskets or something like that? Do it the hard way? No. All you need is a really good nuclear accident. You start killing off the sea life, which it's doing. I mean, it's extraordinary. And the only reason people aren't jacked up about it is because for some reason, I guess it's just stuck in our subconscious. What the Scientology guy, Hubbard, would have said, it's an engram. It's just this thing that's stuck in your head, right? That we trust mainstream media. If we hear it on mainstream media, then we sure enough know it's true. People still think that, even though they don't trust it, they still watch it. So they're not going to tell you how bad Fukushima is. They're not going to tell you that the government has decided it'd be a good idea to start testing the fish that it catches along the Pacific coast. Like, really? 3-4 years later, you think it's a good idea to do this? Okay. Well, I guess better late than never. Now you can really scare everybody to death. Don't worry about it. We're going to raise the acceptable level so nobody freaks out. Folks, this is the world you're living in now. It's all about you. If I learned one thing from becoming an aviator, is this. Once you're up there in that aircraft, it's all on you. You have to rely on yourself. You have to rely on your skills, or try to muddle through it with poor skills. If you have poor skills, you don't need to be up there. But this deal we're talking about now. This is not an optional experience. If trouble is visited upon you, you didn't bring it on, but you are having to deal with it. And so, just go to Caravan to Midnight and take a look around. And I tell people, look, you don't have to buy it from me, but get one from somewhere. Of course, I'd be delighted if you would buy it from us. But I'm saying, whether you do or not, equip yourself. You're going to need this stuff.
Yeah,
You're going to need it.
Imagine how awesome it would be if you were able to help get your listeners prepared with water filtration, long-term food storage, maybe seeds, if that's a possibility for them to work with, if they're able to test their environment, if they're able to, I am so big on preparedness. I don't know if it's because I was a Boy Scout when I was a kid, or I'm awake as a teenager and really concerned in my 20s and 30s, but when it comes down to prepping, I mean, you need to have everything. Like I've been really working in the food realm. I've been working in the water purification realm. You got to learn skills. You got to be in good shape. You got to get rid of your vices. So if you did have to do a 50-mile walk, that you're not going to keel over after mile 13. Like there's 100 ways that we can be strong as a nation, strong as individuals, and that's the only way that some sort of disaster isn't going to mess with you. If you got to evacuate your house in 10 minutes notice, do you have a game plan? Do you have the materials? Are you going to go begging to FEMA that they're going to, please, sir, can I have some more? Can I have some more nothing? Could I have some water or bread, please? I'm not going to a camp. No matter what happens, I don't have the skill set to hunt and fish, but I have other skills to grow food, to cultivate, to harvest, to filter. I'm not going. And that's really the way that people get That's the way that we, the people, have power over a government that promises everything and then can therefore take everything. You don't want to put your hand out because then you owe favors. It's very similar to the political realm. And if something does happen, I mean, Lord Almighty, I hope you've taken a few minutes to come up with a game plan in a worst-case scenario. So yeah, it's if they can get this stuff from anywhere, go get a Sawyer filter, go get a Life Straw, go get something from somewhere. But if you go to John's site at caravantomidnight.com, guess what? You kick him a couple of bucks in the process. And it's like we're all trying to pay our bills and do the things we love. Check his site out first. I mean, I've been into prepping, John, big time. Like I said, a lot with the growing food and saving seeds and cultivating. Do you ever get into any of that stuff?
I don't personally, but there are people in the crew who do.
And with a lot of that, you have the food security issue, and you have just trying to figure out, are you eating genetically modified stuff? What are you consuming? How bad is McDonald's for you as their sales plummet and stores are closing? How bad is Coca-Cola for you as their sales are plummeting? Diet Coke with aspartame. We're just considering what we're consuming on a much greater scale than I feel like we've ever been doing, at least since we got this way, sold this bill of goods. Have you been following this story with the missing and dead doctors, John?
Yeah, that's very odd, but it's difficult to maintain your credibility, and you kind of want to save your opinions on some of these things when you have some actual facts behind them. But it doesn't look good. I mean, we know that a lot of physicists and microbiologists and so forth have disappeared over the years. I mean, we know that that's true. I mean, that's depending on the contract that you're working under, that can be a very high risk business. It pays really well, if you make it. People will kill you over a cigarette. How much more quickly do you think they will kill for billions upon billions of dollars? When you have somebody like Dr. Richard Allen Miller come on the program and say, no, they selected that particular chipset in those Motorola phones because those chips were known to cause the most damage. And I said, what? And he said, yes. So that's his story, and he's sticking with it. It's like duly noted. Let's move on. Well, sure enough, today I saw this Russian doctor has confirmed that cell phone radiation can cause cancer, and little kids are particularly vulnerable to this kind of radiation. Of course, he says, don't put it up to your head. Use the speakerphone and use it less. Well, we can't say that. It might hurt our sales. The best thing that people could do would be to switch that thing off if there's a real emergency, the damn thing won't work anyway. All circuits are busy now. Please try your call again later. And that's just the reality of things. People are trying to rely on their stuff. You can't rely on your stuff. The only thing that's going... Look, we are also dealing with people, and let's just go here if you want to.
I go everywhere. The thing about my shows is there are no limits. There are no roadmaps. If you go back to the Sumerians and then the early tribes of Israel, and you go to the Egyptians and the various pharaohs, and you go to the pyramids, and then you find out they're all over the place, and that there is a lot of hardcore intel, not just information that has to be vetted, but there's intel on the origin of these things and what was meant by what. John, can we go back to Lemuria and Atlantis as well? Well, you can, because they discover new things every day, and most of it corroborates what's written in ancient text. It's just the way it is, and what you're dealing with among these. Why would somebody write in the Bible that God said nobody sits in a place of authority that I don't put there? Why would somebody write something like that?
as Dr. Krauss said on Coast to Coast one night, oh, the Bible was written by illiterate people. And I thought, wow, the fact that you're a professor at anything is amazing. How can illiterate people write anything?
The
What's
definition,
wrong with you? I mean, are you not keeping up with the words that are coming out of your mouth? And it was nothing but vitriol, frankly.
Yeah.
Anti-Christian vitriol. But here's the deal.
I've run into a lot of that these days, by the way. Have you seen more anti-Christian vitriol? I've always seen it on the fringes, but have you seen more of it lately?
Oh, absolutely.
I'm sorry,
they're trying to stamp Christianity out. And the reason they're trying to stamp it out is because it's real.
Well, back to your guest on Coast to Coast. I don't want to veer you off topic there. I'm sorry.
Well, no, that's it. He just mentioned that illiterate people wrote the Bible, and yet there are so many things that are written in there that are immutable. It's just the way it is. And you see the. There's stuff in there about. I don't know if it was Sodom and Gomorrah or what. I'm not a theologian. I'm not a biblical scholar, but it's like basically what it was saying is, They gave themselves a drink and partying, and after a while, the parties got so wild that the women are boring, so the men turned on each other and started making love to each other and stuff. Why would anybody write anything like this, unless it really happened? Why would somebody say the thing that hath been done is the thing that shall be done, and the thing that shall be done is the thing that hath been done, and there's nothing new under the sun, nothing. It's the same story. It's just the style. It's the same road. It's just the scenery changes a little bit as you go along, but it's the same road. And that's where we are right now. And it says we don't fight among, physical things. The battle that we're dealing with here is really more in the heavenly realm among entities and spirits. I'm paraphrasing big time here, but of good and evil. That's what this is all about.
Yeah.
The whole point in the subject of philosophy is what makes a good life. And people are going, well, watching TV and the game and sitting around with the guys and all that makes a good life. It's like, no. That's just an activity within your life. We're talking about the actual content of your life, the meaning of your life, the meaningfulness of your life. That's what we're talking about. But people get number and number and number to all this stimuli that hits them continuously. Lights and signs and sound and jets and cars and all this stuff continuously. They don't have time. We think of, he's kind of a weirdo, man. He's out there meditating every morning. It's like, meditating where? Well, in his backyard. What, you looked over his fence and saw he was meditating?
and he's the weirdo?
It's like, he's the weirdo for meditating, but you're looking over the fence at him, right? Okay.
That's nice.
That's kind of where we are right now.
That's libertarianism in a nutshell. Do your thing, don't bother anyone else. And like when other people want to regulate how you're allowed to live and the things you can and can't do, it's like, oh yeah, he's an extremist. I'm sorry, who are you looking over my fence? That's awesome.
Yeah, it's like I saw this cartoon when I was a little kid, and it made an impression on me. This little old lady was talking to this policeman, and he says, "Ma'am, what are you talking about? Who's exposing themselves? I can't see anything." She goes, "Here, use these binoculars."
Oh yeah, and I think that you have a lot of that. You have the Rick Santorums, you have the Mike Huckabees, you have the people in the Republican Party that are deemed as those social conservatives. And let me veer it off this way, if I could, John. Do you have a few least favorite candidates that have announced for president, and do you have a few favorite candidates thus far? Because I think the social issues are going to make a difference, and I'm going to eventually veer this into discussing Planned Parenthood, but a step or two down the road. So what do you make of the early field with the GOP? That would be if... Oh, there we go.
Steve,
okay, you're back.
Yeah, as far as the players that we know are concerned, I think the dream team would be probably Trump as president, Cruz as vice president, Trey Gowdy as Secretary of State, and Darrell Issa as Secretary of Defense. And I think everybody it would be fun to just watch everybody, shut up.
I think Gowdy should be the AG. I want him at AG.
Yeah, that actually would be good. And then move Rand Paul into Secretary of State. That'd probably be all right.
Oh, Rand's non-interventionist, libertarian. We're just going to be defensive and not play Team America.
But,
man, that would be interesting.
Yeah, you might have something there, but you got to throw a little bit of liberalism in there, and Rand's in some ways I kind of think that he's like the good liberal. I mean, actually, Brian, you're talking to somebody who was liberal until I couldn't figure out what they meant by it anymore. To be a liberal used to be, yes, you obey the law, but you permit freedom of expression and the expression of individuality, and that's fine. We were anti-war. Everybody knew Vietnam was an unjust war, and it was undeclared. And what are we doing over there? We were against the big police state. Well, okay. And then, let's see, government all over us all the time in our lives and just messing with us continuously and involving us in stuff that we're going to actually have to do the actual fighting and dying. And then somehow that sort of went away. It's like the left flank moved over to the right and the right flank moved over to the left. And now, based on what they do, the legislation that they pass, and the actions that they allow to be taken, even though they should be approved through a formal process, I can't tell a bit of difference. I mean, these terms, conservative and liberal, are just so tired now. I don't think anybody even knows what they mean anymore.
I mean, let's compare John McCain. Let's compare Lindsey Graham. Let's compare Hillary Clinton or John Kerry. Oh, if you ran for president but didn't make it, then you're Secretary of State. Look, Kerry got it once and Hillary got it the other time, because that's what we do with the presidential candidates that didn't quite get it. You get that job and a chance to run the next. I swear this whole thing is completely rigged.
Well, it is. I mean, we can sit here all night and complain about it. We can say things like, what in the world qualifies John Kerry to go over to the Middle East and negotiate a nuclear arms deal with the Iranians?
Yeah,
I mean, seriously.
He had good aim when he threw his Medals of Valor back over the White House fence.
Well, that was some other guy's medals, is what I hear.
Oh, well, he threw some sort of honorary something towards something that was symbolic of something. I mean, it's incredible that it's Hillary and it's Kerry and it's all these retread presidential. Isn't that what happens, though? Don't like the top polling couple of people get in on it and say, hey, you're part of this team now. Even if you don't win, you're on the team. You're going to have a job to fill, and here's the agenda, go. Almost like a head coach is steering all of the crew.
Well, Brian, it's also possible that they're just running out of crew members. They're just running out of people to recycle, and which is why they may be wanting to make what plays remain to be made while they're still kicking. That's why maybe all of this stuff is accelerating like it is, because they need to get it done. They realize that they're starting to move off the main sequence, meaning off the world stage. I mean, Hillary, to me, is making an idiot of herself pursuing this presidential bid. I think it's just stupid.
It's not going to end well. She's got the whole Benghazi and the IRS. Like, there is so much just waiting to pounce forth. I feel like Obama played the Clintons. I think he got what he needed to get to defeat her. He got what he needed to bring her in and make her think she was part of the team. And I think he's going to intentionally screw her on the way out the door. Do you get that vibe too?
Probably. You remember when Adolf Hitler did his Night of the Long Knives? 80-something people got killed that night when he did his big purge. Well, one of them was this, I don't know, one of the officers, I don't remember his name, and he was just like, well, I've always been loyal to Adolf, but I guess he's got to do what he's got to do. And he was a close friend of Adolf Hitler's. But that's how these people are. If there's any doubt that you're going to be, as to whether or not you're going to be a problem, they just take that off the table by taking your head off and putting it on a table. That's just how it is. So they're going to do whatever it takes to get where they need to go, and if they need to cut somebody loose, they just do.
Did you ever make anything of the stuff Joe Biden's been going through? Losing his kid, like him getting injured, and it seemed like when Harry Reid got the Harry treatment, when he had his workout mishap shortly after Bundy Ranch didn't go so well. I find these things fascinating. You and I have talked about Michael Hastings, the reporter from Rolling Stone that got offed after he was doing some expose work. Do you think there's anything to the Biden and Harry Reid injuries and things happening in the family as if warnings, you better follow what we're saying, did you really doubt us, kind of stuff?
Yeah, it's the thing about it is it doesn't look good, and we could spin a yarn about. I mean, it looked to me like that was one hell of a mess up on an exercise bike or whatever he was on. I mean, I suppose it's possible, but it looks to me like somebody smacked him in the face about halfway as hard as they could. Reed lost sight of that eye, didn't he?
I believe so. Yeah, he was looking like a pirate for a while. And you said,
So
"Wow,
the next
that's
thing I
an
hear
unusual
is that
thing."
Kerry didn't really fall off his bicycle. Something else happened, and then the next thing I heard was that it almost hit his heart. It's like, don't think there's any evidence to support that anything like really, bad by way of an attempt happened to John Kerry at all. I think people are taking a lot of these stories and just running with them. There are a lot of trolls out there. There are a lot of misinformation and disinformation people out there. And there's a difference between misinformation and disinformation.
Explain it.
You know what it is. Misinformation is just misguiding you. But disinformation is creating a third element. The first element is what they're telling you, what you're receiving, and the message that they really want you to get. They want to steer you towards something else. Misinformation is just basically it's a disinformation light. It's more of a fib than a hardcore lie, so to speak. So you just have to watch out for that stuff. I got an example for you. One of the website news magazines. It says John B. Wells calls for revolution, and I'm like,
hold on, which outlet was this? Which one was this?
I did an interview with Dave Hodges,
Okay.
and I was the interviewee, and when it went up on Before It's News, it says John B. Wells calls for revolution. Well, no. If you listen to it, it's like I said, the time for revolution in this country is past due. But the way that the headline read, it was like they might as well have said John B. Wells calls for armed insurrection, which I didn't do that either. That'd be an extraordinarily stupid thing to do unless it was really hitting the fan hard and there was no way out.
Yeah, if you have one last broadcast.
I can tell you that if I ever think that it is time to do that, I will sing out about it, but I have not done that yet. So
yeah, if there was one last broadcast before we had to head for the hills, like maybe that's the message I've pre-recorded and I hit play and I give myself a 45-minute heads up while people think I'm live on the air. Yeah, maybe if it came to that, that's a place you would take it. But somewhere you did take it was very interesting. You had a guest on. It was a woman. It was a couple of weeks ago when Jade Helm was starting, and I found that interview to be absolutely fascinating. Is that one of the ones on YouTube, or is that on your main site?
It's definitely on YouTube. Tell
people about it. Tell them where they can find it, and then explain what I'm talking about, please.
Yeah, you can just type in Caravan to Midnight channel, or you can just put in my name with the middle initials, John B. Wells, and then CTM for Caravan to Midnight, and it'll take you there. But, effectively, she goes by DJ, and she actually has her website up now. It's called Level 9 News, and you use the number 9, level9news.com. She got that going. And basically, her assertion was that this is an artificial intelligence deal, and where each person becomes effectively a node in an information matrix. And that's the master of the human domain part. People need to understand that the military is highly compartmentalized. All the operatives on the ground know is when they're leaving, what vehicle to report to, whether it flies and goes on the water, under the water, or over the road. And they may know after they board this craft where they're going, and when they get where they're going, wherever that is, then they'll be told what their mission is within the parameters of what they're expected to accomplish. But every soldier there, Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marines, and Coast Guard, which, by the way, is under control of the Department of Homeland Security now. It's not part of the Navy anymore and hadn't been for a while. They don't share all of this information. They don't share the invasion of Europe with, the privates and the corporals. Not until they're on the landing craft, and then they find out where they're going, so to speak. I mean, obviously there was some preparation, but their overall battle plan is concealed. They make little things seem big, and they make big things seem little. as far as Special Operation Command is concerned, everybody knows this from watching any of the the 2003 era video that came back from these various conflicts in Iraq and Afghanistan, but particularly Iraq, where the SOCOM guys, these guys got beards and long hair and blue jeans and sweatpants and all kinds of stuff. They're not wearing uniforms. The Special Operations people already blend into the civilian population, except they're easy to spot if you know what to look for, if you know what you're looking at.
Look for the boots. The boots are a dead giveaway.
Oh, there's all kinds of stuff that's a dead giveaway,
What else? What else are some giveaways? Because I always like the boots jumped out at me, saying they have to wear these types of shoes for these horses. They're going to be clad the same way. What else do you notice on them? Because I'm very curious.
I'm not sure it's a very good idea to say that over your program. I'll just say that there are ways to see who they are, but I don't think it's in anybody's interest to say what those things are.
Interesting. Okay, I'll talk with you off air about that.
Yeah.
But your guest then with Level 9 News, I mean, she was getting into this. I kind of referenced at the beginning of the program like it was SkyNet, something out of Terminator 2.
It kind of is.
I mean,
it kind of is.
It freaked me out.
Well, it should, because they have big plans for us. They have I can't remember what the multiple was, but China has replaced something like 90% of their workers in this one particular factory with robots. And I think the production, I want to say, it either doubled or tripled.
Oh, and that's what happens with McDonald's. L.A., San Francisco, Seattle, they're all raising their minimum wage to $15 an hour. And here, meet your replacement. It's a machine. We don't need this job at all. I go to a ticket booth. Do you ever do this, John? Do you ever go to like a parking garage and there's a human being there? And you hand them your...
Rarely.
Well, I actually have one close to me, and there's a human being, and I hand him the ticket, and then I either hand him $1 or I get the first couple hours free or whatever. And every single time I go, why is somebody paying you to do this? You're like just putzing around on YouTube. You're not contributing anything of value. This should be automated, and this job will be gone. And you're saying China's doing this on a large scale.
Yeah, they are.
And so
yes,
when we have too many people...
And, they haven't been in the capitalist Ponzi scheme long enough to realize what they were walking into, but they sure walked into it.
Do you think that they're getting pummeled, or do you think that they're tricking us for the nice rally? Because they've set a lot of really key components in place for long-term success.
Well, but it's difficult to second-guess life, and it's very difficult to outsmart God. And so what they have done is you can make all the plans that you want, but an economy that is as fluid as this one, I don't think they're setting us up for anything because they own too much of our debt, if that's really true. And there's no way to know. I mean, isn't your understanding as the same as mine that China owns the majority of our debt?
Yeah, but it's not my debt. It's not your debt. It's a couple of clowns, some guy named McCain, some guy named Bush, some guy named Obama. Go down the list. It's not our debt. It's those guys. You got a problem, go after them.
You're very close to something even more important. You're right. It doesn't matter. They were tossing around. Remember when they were tossing around the idea of a $1 trillion coin?
Oh yeah,
Here,
I remember.
Here,
there was
an
episode.
There was
an episode of The Simpsons where Mr. Burns.
Seriously.
Mr. Burns had like the $1 trillion bill. He had the $1 trillion bill.
They're realizing the world is waking up to the fact that a fiat currency system is useless.
Explain fiat and explain fractional reserve banking and maybe how that ties to Greece for the newbies that are here for the other stuff and they really don't get the economic side of it. Give us a couple sentences to like the basic economic lesson of fiat currency and fractional reserve banking and what's going on in Greece.
Well, money is supposed to be an agreement to exchange goods or services, or both. Okay, and that's why it said on all our little dollar bills back in the Stone Age, legal tender for all debts, public and private. Okay, that makes it official. And up at the top it said silver certificate, because once upon a time those dollar bills were in fact redeemable for the actual metal. When you have a fiat currency, it means that your medium of exchange is basically worthless. It's only worth what it is agreed by everybody who uses the currency to be worth. It is not backed with anything except productivity, either real or imaginary.
Oh, either real or imaginary?
Yes.
That gives me a decent percentage of getting it right.
Well, we're going to do some quantitative easing. Okay, quantitative easing. What do you mean by that? It means we're going to throw a huge quantity of cash, literal cash, into the system. We're going to have the Treasury print this, deliver these bills to these various banks to be disseminated to other banks and branch banks and all this stuff, and all the derivative banks, the little branches. We'll just call them that instead of derivatives. That's what they are. That's another story for another time, though. And then it will ease the absence of cash. What do you mean by that? What it means is that when you look at the numbers printed on a page, when you look at that printout, those numbers are completely out of proportion with the reality of your gross domestic product.
Like the woman that's only getting 77 cents on the dollar, like the person that's paying $4 for a carton of eggs when it used to be 59 cents. Inflation is taking all that money away. Kind of like that inflationary purchasing power of the dollar bill that we've been experiencing.
Man, it's worse than that. It's like, here, I'll give you 2 decoder rings for 1 magic wand. And none of that stuff works, but it's like, okay, it is what the nation that is using the currency believes it to be worth. That's why the United States has fought tooth and nail. So that what's the one thing that we absolutely positively sell more of than anything else? Oil. What for? Everything. Okay, gotcha. Well, like what? Our cars? That's just the beginning. Cellophane, paints, inks, just go on and on. Fabrics, everything. So much stuff is made from oil, you can't believe it.
Plastic. There's a future in plastics, I tell you, from The Graduate.
Well, yeah, actually, he was correct, wasn't
he? Yeah, he sure. When was that movie? 1967 or something? It was an old movie. And yeah, plastics are a big deal, and that's all oil and petroleum based as well. I mean, that's been like one of the number one items to have, other than gold and silver and platinum, over the past 100 years.
Yeah, well, because the volume of money surrounding the extraction and the refining and the movement of oil and oil products all over the world, because that involves so much of the apparatus, the actual mechanical apparatus. That's the most likely thing to want to peg your currency to, so that, and it only does one thing. It simply prices the barrel of oil in dollars rather than other currencies, which may fluctuate because heretofore they have been weaker currencies than the dollar. The problem is when your own currency starts getting weak, and you're still trying to hold on to that reserve unit of exchange. But now what's happening is what happened in the 30s. Now what's happening is, according to these economists, and I'm not an economist, but we are in a period of deflation, meaning in the Depression era, it's not that the money wasn't worth anything. It was, but no one had any. And that's what caused that depression. No one had any money. The money was worth something, and a few people got very, very rich during those days, because while everybody else was on their backside suffering, they were going around buying up this and buying up that, and I'm sure a lot of oil fields and things like that.
A time to sell and a time to buy. Look at Zimbabwe, though. They have their $1 trillion bills. They have tons of money, and it's worth nothing.
Yeah, but now what do you need? Now the elite, the people who run things, these people are well-heeled. No problem whatsoever. So now, if we don't do something, all of our citizens are going to get mad, and we're not going to make it. We're not going to make it at all. Well, what can we do? Well, what will stimulate production quicker than anything?
A war.
The threat of annihilation.
There we go. Yeah, let's build things to blow up other people because they're devils.
It's weird, man, which is why I say it really is. There's no reason whatsoever. We could go all over the place, and some of it, Brian, is so harsh. What would happen? Look at this Planned Parenthood deal, 65 million babies. It's like, okay, let's look at the hard reality of this, because this is the hard reality. What has Barack Obama done for black people? Answer, nothing, except get them jacked up about, enhanced racial division as much as he possibly could. All right? Now, what would we do, since they're saying 65 million through Planned Parenthood over X number of years? Okay, and that about, I may not be correct on this, but it seems like I heard that like 90% were black kids that were done away with.
Margaret Sanger has a bit of a track record, doesn't she?
Yeah, she does, and most people don't believe it. They think it's just a wild conspiracy theory that Margaret Sanger was a eugenicist and put Planned Parenthood together to keep the population of black people under control. But here's the flip side of that coin. What would we do, and even more importantly, what would they do if there were 50 million more poor, uneducated, urban-bound black people in these urban areas? Look what happens in Chicago and Detroit and Oakland. Can anyone answer why is there so much violence? And then they mount a PR campaign of some kind, Black Lives Matter. It's like, well, you could fool me by the number of blacks that are killing other blacks. It's like 92% of all black people who are killed, murdered, are killed by other black people. Now, would somebody explain that to me?
And out here in Los Angeles, John, they have there's something going around about like the Hot 100s or something.
Yeah, the race to 100. I saw that.
Yeah, so you got two gangs allegedly going to kill 100 people within 100 days or whatever the exact mark of lunacy is. I've been assured through radio shows and senior lead officers that that's an unsubstantiated kind of urban legend. But either way, look at Ferguson, look at Baltimore, look at these places, Cincinnati. If that doesn't go the right way, every city is kind of bracing for what is going to set off a race war in the middle of this city. And there are some people that are actually excited for the chance of something like that. It's astonishing and sickening to me, John.
Well, it's sad. It really is sad. And, apparently a bunch of people contributed to bond out that cop that shot that guy in Cincinnati.
I saw that, yeah. I watched that video. I don't know what leg he has to stand on, just like that killing in South Carolina. The guy's running away from him. Okay, Walter Jones. It's so hard to even remember the names. I remember I was your guest on Coast to Coast when Kelly Thomas, when that murder verdict did not come out properly. The Fullerton, California police got off, and they didn't face charges for murdering. They weren't convicted. Kelly Thomas out here in California. And, this police brutality thing on some levels is absolutely real. However, it's also been co-opted by this really nefarious, race-baiting, explode-it-from-the-inside kind of influence that wants to see a race war and a socioeconomic war in the inner cities that could maybe even spread. I mean, you're seeing that, too, in Texas and across the rest of the country, at least to some degree, right? We're not really seeing the racial problems in Texas. We're really not. The biggest problem in Texas is illegal aliens, mostly from Mexico and Central America. Wouldn't some of that end up being a bit of a race dynamic to the equation, or it's different?
You would think so when you've got a group calling themselves La Raza, calling for unlimited immigration into the country, and so many of the people coming over here are causing problems. The thing is that when you bring, and this is just how it is, when you bring undereducated, unskilled people who speak a different language, who are basically simple people because they have lived in a simple culture that was not technically demanding. It was, Mexico City is a thriving city, so you can't say this about everybody. You just can't. Generalization is very dangerous on subjects like this. But what I believe what is happening is this: the Chinese are building a high-speed bullet train down there in Mexico, and I don't know how far it goes. I have the cities that it went between them. It's about 240 miles worth of track, Chinese are building this high-speed train. I believe that what Mexico is doing to us is the same thing that Castro did to us when he dumped all the criminals out of his prisons. They all flooded into Florida. I think that they are dumping their poor on us. The Nigerians did it a different way. They sold them into slavery. That's what they did. And then when they enriched themselves enough, they began to invade other countries and sell them into slavery. All these idiots out there that think that guys in pith helmets with khaki shirts and shorts on were chasing black guys through the jungle, throwing nets over them and dragging them kicking and screaming back to the slave ship. That's just rubbish. That didn't happen.
There was a lot of their own people doing this.
It was strictly their own people that were doing it, and they were brokered to us.
So the sellers,
and America through the Arabs. That's it.
The sellers were 80% their own people, and the buyers were 80% the other people.
First slave owner in this country was a black man who sued to retain ownership of his slave at some point. It's a very interesting story. If you don't believe me, you can look it up, right? And the ethnic Mexicans, wherever there's a black population, when the Mexicans come in, the black people leave. Everybody's getting pushed tighter and tighter. I mean, you should see what's going on in Dallas, Texas. It's like the Mexicans who have come here are pushing out into the suburbs, and the Caucasians are all getting pushed into pretty much the inner city. They're all going to high-rises and apartments and all this stuff.
Interesting.
It's unbelievable.
I'm kind of feeling a little bit of the same way out here in Los Angeles, too. That some infrastructure projects are going up in Los Angeles, different public transportation, different centralized projects with housing and restaurants and grocery stores, everything central to bring the suburbs right into the middle of the city. I'm feeling it here too, and I've seen it in Cleveland, where I'm originally from, a suburb south of there. The past few times I went back there, the inner city is turning into a really interesting, awesome place, at least a lot more than it was 10 years ago. It's a really weird dynamic I've noticed on my own as well.
Well, what you're looking at in the not-too-distant future, I mean, you've seen a lot of, you're a young guy, you've seen a lot of progress, a lot of changes over the last, say, 20 years. Well, I've seen a lot of what you might call progress and change. I'll just say, I'm not going to say progress. Maybe that's not the operative word. It's progress towards something, but it's not good progress necessarily.
Changes, yeah.
I've been looking at it for easily 40 years, and it's just getting more and more intense. We have to remember the people who have the designs for how humanity should live. They understand that these plans will take time to unfold and be fully executed. But I was out in L.A. the other week. I went out there to talk to some people about that thing we were talking about earlier. The Jade Helm deal.
Hang on, before you get to Jade Helm, next time you're in Los Angeles, if you don't hit me up, you and I are going to have words, because we need to hang out and have a cup of tea, if you will, one of these days, my friend.
It was a real quick trip, and just a little bit of it was spent in L.A. proper to visit with Dr. Gregory A. Smith, who released his new movie, American Addict 2. Which is about the pharmaceutical company and how they are just absolutely hooking people on drugs. I mean, beginning at age 0. I mean, they're prescribing people are being prescribed antidepressants, and they're been between the ages of 0 and 6 months. I mean, they're already. It's ridiculous.
I'm a kid that was on Ritalin for a long time, and then I eventually said, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't care what it means, and it was a little bit like flowers for Algernon. When you were pumped so full of this stuff, you're nonstop focused. Yeah, my grades suffered just a little bit when I got away from this stuff, but I got me back, and I'd been on that for a long time. So you see all these with the SSRI inhibitors, the SSRI drugs that are being pumped through most of these big-time school shooters or theater shooters. There really is an aspect of the pharmaceutical industry pumping people through with unnecessary chemicals and getting really horrific circumstances and side results out of it. I mean, it's a real issue, John.
Well, people can say, I mean, you can sum it up into why is all this happening, but the answer is it's just a control. It's all part of one big control mechanism. These are just separate components, but they all work together, whether it's I mean, look at the veteran suicide. I mean, why are people will go crazy over, the killing of poor Cecil the lion over there by that dentist, But But they don't look at they don't stop using their cell phones because a guy publishes an article that states that it can cause cancer and it may take a while, but it will get you at some point. And effectively, I mean, he didn't say this in these words, but I'm saying it. After hearing this information, if you let your little kid play with a cell phone, you are a malicious moron because these things are not good. And there have been ample authorities come on the program warning people on programs that I hosted on Coast, on programs that I've hosted on Caravan to Midnight, that are saying this stuff is bad news. And sure enough, here comes the article saying we have confirmed it. It is bad news, real bad news. Well, people just go on about their business, and that's why I say we can talk until we're blue in the face, but we're not going to convince everybody that anything is going on here. But if they take time to just stop and really look at what it is and then ask themselves, are you okay with all of this? And when I say that, I mean, does your conscience support what you know is going on? If it does, man, go on down the road and take your chances. If your conscience won't support this, then do something about it. What's happening now, and I said this earlier in your program, is that we're being made to hate each other. Liberal, conservative, black, white, brown, yellow, whatever. Your choice. Oh, well, you eat from a fast food chain. Oh, no, I'm a vegan. It's like division. It's not choices anymore. It's division now. Everybody has choices. Well, everything changes, and it can start off as one kind of doctrine, and before it's gone on very long, really, it changes into another. But we are dealing with, to some degree, and I mean this, when you look at the Vatican and NASA having to put together a project at Mount Graham, the Lucifer telescope. Question number one: how'd that deal get put together? Number two: now one more time, why'd you name it Lucifer? Those people up there that man that thing are so completely over the UFO so-called phenomenon. They're like, UFOs, we got to wait for them to get out of the way so that we can look up there at what we were trying to study. They're in the way. And they're serious. I mean, these white balls were photographed recently over Osaka, Japan. They were photographing the same balls over England, and people just go, oh, well, I mean, my own son posted a video of some of those white balls, look just like those ones over Japan. And, these people, and God bless them, I'm not mad at them or anything. It's like, I'll just say it anyway. All these idiots are out there going, this is fake. I can tell it's fake. It's like, well, no, you can't, because they're not fake and they're not spotlights. So no spotlight can do that. I don't care what it is.
It's funny.
It's not going to do what these lights did.
I saw something in New Mexico when I was in Taos, New Mexico, right outside of there. I saw the, and I don't have an aviation background, so most of the things I see are unidentified. Okay, that's a lack of knowledge, not just saying they're all alien, but I remember seeing something over that same mountain range, head over my head. I've never seen anything move that fast at that elevation. It was just a circular ball of light, and it was flying. I mean, it was incredibly impressive. Is that something similar to what you're saying that these sightings are? Because I haven't seen the ones you're referencing. Are they just circular balls of radiating light, or are they moving around left and right, or just straight lines? What are the? It
looks like a flock of snowballs, and they're in sort of an irregular pattern, just kind of going across the sky. This stuff is absolutely completely real. I mean, Anthony Patch has, like I say, has gone off the radar because of his discussions about CERN. I mean, there are people out there who are not only believe in God and Christ. Oh, they believe in them both very much. They have consciously chosen to oppose them. Period. These are the same kinds of people that, flip out and, dance nude in front of statues of Baphomet or whatever. Some of these people are really, really into it. In the same way that some people will say, well, the Lord provides for all of my needs, and I have a sincere prayer every day, and my life runs along fine. Well, there are other people that say, well, I perform satanic rituals, and my life is going well too. Every once in a while we have to do a little something that might seem a little gory or unusual, but, hey, it's working for us. We like it. That's the thing. The ones that work for the dark side, they like it. It's not an accident. It's not a mistake. They like it. They chose it. They want to do it. They don't like humanity. They do not like God. They hate Jesus. Why is it, Brian, when you mention God, people they'll shift on their feet just a little bit. You mention Jesus, and you would think that your face just turned into a rattlesnake or a cobra and was going to bite them. They just almost recoil at it. Why would they do that?
It's so weird, John, because growing up in Ohio, I was always going to a Baptist church or a Reformed church or a Lutheran church, or we went to several different versions. Stayed for different lengths of time at different ones. But when I grew up, that was just kind of the normal thing. That's just what most of the people around me were doing. And I'll tell you what, I've been in Los Angeles for 9-10 years. It's a little bit different out here. And, looking at the Hollywood sign from our studio right here. Looking out at that Hollywood sign, what does it represent? Is it very different from Ohio? Yeah, probably very different from Texas and Kansas and a lot of Middle America too.
Well, I urge your listeners to take a chance. It's $15. Just take a chance. Go to YouTube, check it out, see how the programs run, and understand that we talk with some of the finest minds out there, and you will hear a program all about the origins of the name Hollywood, previously known as Hollywoodland. Most people think there's just a development out there they decided to call Hollywoodland. Au contraire, it has a much deeper meaning than that. And there's been all kinds of occult stuff going on out there. And make no mistake, as sure as hell, the voodoo that they work down in Haiti and places like that stuff works, and it's because the people believe in it. If you believe in something, it works. But where's the voodoo Bible? Where's the voodoo handbook? I don't recall ever seeing one. People think they know how to live, but they're not really living. They're simply surviving. They may be succeeding a little bit, make a little bit of money, got a nice house, a few things to make them comfortable, but what do you really have? I mean, how are you really living the only thing you have of any value, which is your life and the lives of those that, whom you love? That's all you have. As far as your stuff is concerned, it's true. You don't own your stuff. Your stuff owns you.
That is so true, John.
It does.
It is the truth. How do you get rid of your drum kit and your guitar? You're a musician yourself. Don't you have a certain amount of stuff that makes you feel like you're you? I'm in that same spot. I got to ask you that. I don't want to take you too far off point, but when you're a musician, you're always a musician. You want your toys around, whether that's a studio somewhere else, whether that's your place. How do you thin out your life to the point where the stuff you own does not own you? I would love to pick your brain on that.
Well, there are various methods for doing this. Somebody recently told me that one of their friends had decided that they were going to own 100 things, and that's it. And
I've heard of that.
Pairs of socks, watch, table, whatever. I mean, that's why, when you go to Scandinavian countries, largely, that's why their design is so minimalist, because they don't. I'll just say this, look, it's about, where the elite are concerned, it's about bloodlines. It is about bloodlines, and some of these bloodlines are of questionable origin.
So you mean if we follow the oligarchs like the Bushes or the Obamas or the Clintons, and you're starting to follow this same old line like they do in England with kings and queens and potentates and whatnot, kind of like that, like the oligarch ruling family, if you've seen their name too much, they're probably not someone you want to represent you, something like that?
Bro, they go all the way back to the Sumerians, some of them. I mean,
the Anunnaki.
Well, yeah, possibly. Some of them are probably got a little Nephilim running through them. I mean, riddle me this: why is it that there are the brilliant archaeologists all over the world who are discovering, 12, 14, 15, 16-foot-long skeletons with elongated skulls? And it wasn't any head wrapping that did this. And you look at the Egyptians with those hats they wear, those real long ones, it's like, that's not a fashion statement. That's because that's the shape of their heads.
Göbekli Tepe in Turkey.
This isn't some woo-woo Bravo Sierra. This is a fact. But I'll guarantee you that there's somebody out there in the audience listening right now going, Bravo, Sierra. You guys are full of it. That Wells guy's full of it. There aren't any giants out there with elongated heads. It's like, yeah, there are.
Yeah, they had me when they were talking about missing doctors and Ferguson and John Boehner, but they lost me on that ancient alien stuff.
Yeah, well, it's all true, and the technology that we enjoy today. When you look up there and you see those unidentified flying objects, I mean, my own mother came through the door one evening, and that it was just turning that really super deep blue just before it gets permanently. It's night, it's dark. And she came in and she said, she never spoke like this, but she said, "John, I just saw the damnedest thing." And I said, "What?" And I said, "Where? What is it?" And I mean, my mother was the steadiest, most rational person you'd ever. I mean, she was just full of life and just a great person. And she did anything except, pull people's legs and pull pranks or joke. That was not Mom at all. And she said, I was right there at Oakland, and we called it the Turnpike in those days because it was a toll road. It's now just Interstate 30, the big highway that connects Fort Worth and Dallas. And I said, and? She goes, there was this plane. Yes, because she knew I was into planes. I've always been into planes. And she goes, it was amazing. I said, well, what? She goes, well, it had red lights on each of its corners. And I went, yeah. What did it sound like? I mean, what was it? She goes, it made this unbelievably low rumbling sound. You could really feel it more than hear it, but you could hear it a little bit too. And I said, red lights on its corners? And what are you saying? She said, it was an enormous triangle. I went, what? And she goes, yes. And you could see the belly of the thing from reflecting just slightly from the highway lights on the turnpike. And I went, really? I said, which way was it going? She goes, toward downtown. I said, so west? And she goes, yes. And I said, toward Carswell Air Force Base. And she goes, well, yes, I suppose so. And that was that. And like 30 years later, I'm hearing about, oh, man, black triangles. Well, you start looking at them, and you find out that black triangles started appearing in Christian art along with orbs and rods and all kinds of crazy stuff in the 14th century. I mean, look, this is not some made-up crap. This is true. I mean, sorry, didn't mean to let the C word out, but seriously, people just go.
John, you could let it all rip. We keep it how we keep it, but
and I get intense, and when I start talking loud,
no. Over here, you're
like
okay. I'll just so you know, over here you're okay. We steer it how we steer it, but yeah, it's the same stuff that's been going on for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and thousands and thousands and thousands of years.
Absolutely, man, it is the same thing. And these people work with, or whatever they are, they work with time. Time doesn't mean a damn thing when you're in space at a certain speed. It doesn't mean anything. It is a mechanical thing. Now, I'll tell you, if you really want to put the zap on your head, try this sometime. Get stoned and read your college astronomy book.
Hey, we got a blue moon tonight.
Yeah, you won't make it 3 pages before you go, oh, my God, the distances. Oh, no, I can't deal with this. No. But that's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with, down here on this planet like this, we're dealing with all these idiots like McCain and this one and that one, and what are they doing, and Jade Helm and Fukushima and all this. But listen, the universe is way bigger than this. You got a blue moon out there already?
In a couple hours, yeah. In a couple hours, it's going to happen tonight. I believe at like 3 or 5 in the morning. I got to double check. I keep seeing things East Coast versus West Coast.
Well, it's a couple of minutes to 7 where you are. Yeah, we've got a great big moon out here. To the, I suppose that's east.
Yeah, apparently the blue moon will look a little red, and it's the 13th full moon that we're going to get this whole year, so it's kind of rare that you get 2 in the same month, and that's what the blue moon is, something like that.
Well,
yeah.
man, it was a huge pink disc out on the horizon. Now it's still huge, but it's kind of going to that. It's still a little bit orange, but it's heading toward yellow. It's rising pretty quickly.
Let me ask you, what do you make of these alleged pyramids and these lights and Ceres and Pluto? And it sure seems like outer space has been the thing to distract us lately. What are you making of all this? Because I know you're totally into all the aviation and ancient aliens and the real origin of humanity, how we got here, what the point is. What are you making of all this NASA stuff lately? They've been silent for years, and now it's nonstop NASA.
Well, yeah, and speaking of NASA, I'll just quickly toss this out here. The NASA has confirmed that we're in our 21st year of global cooling. I've been saying that for years. I read in the early 70s that we were on the verge of entering a new ice age. It would kick off, and it was over a decade away in those times. We're now in our 21st year. So, and then NOAA came out and said, and so NASA says there's no global warming. NOAA comes on 2 days later and says, and publishes this thing about, and the word fraud was all over this article. In fact, saying that no, there's been a rise in temperature, but what they had done is applied the urban area heat recordings to the unmonitored the unmonitored rural areas, and just spread out those numbers over the whole country, and that's how they came up with their data. You've even got East Anglia over there, the home of the hacked emails, talking about how climate science is BS, basically.
Oh yeah.
They've come back saying, it's definitely global cooling. I mean, they have completely gone the other way on this global warming nonsense. I mean, look, it's one fraud after another. Look at Y2K. What happened when it turned over midnight plus one fraction of a second past midnight when we entered the year 2000? I'll tell you what, not a damn thing. My old DX50 computer, the clock kept running, but the date reset itself to like 1905 or something. So I just went in there and reset the date, and that was it. We're Y2K compliant. All these companies spent billions of dollars to be Y2K compliant, and it was all a bunch of nonsense. All they had to do is just have their IT people down there just go, well, when it rolls over, just reset the clock. Do it immediately. It's just one bunch of nonsense after another. And the real good stuff, the good tech, the good knowledge, the amazing capabilities of the human being, the secrets of space, which ones of those UFOs are theirs and which ones of them are ours and which ones of them we're not really sure, but they appear to come through portals of some. And people go, oh, portals is like, well, space is infinite. You're okay with that, but you're not okay with a portal? Come on. People just need to disconnect as much as you can from...
Go camping. Get out of the city and your
that's
grid.
That's kind of it, really. It's like
for just a minute.
It says in Scripture, all of this knowledge is not going to help you. You can have it, you can seek it, you can get it, but it's not going to help you. What it will do is what it'll do is just it'll make you walk on the side of your head. Basically, is what it'll do, because there are some things that you just are not going to know right now. And it alludes to later on in another dimension. These actual words are not written, but it's like in another dimension you'll know a lot more than you do now. But right now, this is pretty much all you get to know. And that's how it is. People are like, well, are we in a computer matrix or what is it?
Is this the dream within the dream, like Inception?
Yeah, is it the dreamer's dream? What is it? Well, we don't get to know that either right now, but people want those answers. And the problem with these people is that the ones that are potentially going to cause some real problems is that they know just enough to get themselves in some really serious trouble, because they do not know the origins of anything.
Right.
They don't know where it started. And like that guy I pick on all the time, that, well, I'm a theoretical physicist. You're a theoretical physicist, and you keep calling yourself a scientist.
Well, I'm theoretically a physicist, too. I love that phrase. Yeah, I'm theoretically a physicist as well. Oh, you are? Yeah,
but you know what I mean?
Theoretically...
It's like, how can you call yourself a scientist if you deal in theoretical physics?
It's more like,
That's like quantitative easing. I know what I'll do. I'll just print more money. Look, we have more money. I just printed it.
It's like philosophy, too. Well, I theorize that blah, blah, blah. Based on what? Who cares? I also theorize, and they just spew verbal diarrhea nonstop because I'm thinking it into existence. You're theoretically a physicist.
If theoretical physics is confined to developing theorems that can be applied in an empirical environment where you can create an effect and then repeat that effect through the same process over and over again. Now that's when theory becomes actual science. But that's why they're two different words.
Yeah, you need a working hypothesis that is testable and on a recurring basis. Yeah, it's very simple what a hypothesis, a theory, and a result and an actual law of science is. And it sure seems like this whole global warming thing is just really very little more than a big scam to siphon trillions of dollars into the pockets of a few.
That's all it is, bro. And it's even more than that. What happens is, you go, I'll tell you what, we're going to take some carbon credits from Brian's country, and we're going to take some carbon credits from Sam's country, and what we're going to do is we're going to go and see King Umbongo down here, who doesn't know it, but he's sitting on top of huge strategic minerals, like all over the place. And what we're going to do is we're going to say, we're going to make you a low-interest loan. As a matter of fact, you don't even have to pay us back in cash. We're going to build your infrastructure. It's going to be great. I mean, we're going to turn your nation into a regular party zone. It's going to be great. And the people will be happy, and you will be a hero. Here, have some money. Now, as soon as you get their infrastructure built, now they're in your pocket. That's what all of this is about. They just want to pull... It's the same thing that they try to pull with the European Union. Why would you pull Greece into your European Union? I mean, what are their exports? A little bit of leather goods and olives and olive oil and feta cheese. I mean, what else? I mean, what do the Greeks build? It is effectively a third world country. And you're going to pull them in with Germany. Yeah, we build everything perfect, you know. You're going to pull them in with France. They've got a pretty good manufacturing sector, too.
I'm hearing Spain is the next domino that might fall. I haven't had a chance to really dig into it too much, but I'm hearing Spain.
Well, we're hearing a lot. We've been hearing that for a long time, and it seems plausible because what does Spain put out? Why would you pull these countries that don't produce as much money through their productivity as you are lending them? Do you know, even in the UK, there are different kinds outside of England. England's still on the pound. But the rest of it, they use euros, but they're different kinds of euros. And I hear people tell me that sometimes they'll go from, all they got to do is just step across the border from, one country to the next, go from, Scotland to that part of the UK that's not England, or go over to Wales or whatever, or Ireland. And sometimes they have difficulty. You're supposed to be able to use your euros wherever you are in the UK.
Oh.
But sometimes they get a little static about it, like, well, we don't really take these because we use these euros. It's like, now, I don't know about the currency fluctuations between those two sub-euro units there, but I'm just saying that people have reported having difficulty using them. So...
Sub-euro units. No, that's interesting. Like when you're talking about silver and gold and the Federal Reserve note, what can you actually get with the purchasing power of your dollar after fractional reserve banking and derivatives and all this gambling on Wall Street? After they've all played their games, what can you actually buy with it? So it's like that's that's one of the big things we've been working on. Like I said, is we're considering if everything got shut down. What do you need to get by on? It sure seems like an intended crash is on its way. Doesn't it seem like they're steering it and they're organizing it and they have it all set? It's ready to go. It's a pre-approved crash time, crash damage. Here's where it's going to happen. Here's where the dominoes are going to kick in. I mean, I feel like I've had to be bracing for this for a couple of years now. Are you saying you're in that same boat with me? I just want to make sure we're on the same page here.
Yeah, pretty much. The thing is that the number, I believe, I mean, this is just my opinion, it may be wrong, but at this moment, this is my opinion. It could be that the numbers have just gotten so big where the money is concerned. When you consider somebody hands you a check for, $50 billion, I want to cash this check, you're going to need a few shipping containers to move the cash, even if it's all $100 bills. The amount, $1 trillion in cash, man, that's a lot. That is a lot of cash. That's a lot of weight. That's a lot of volume,
Tell me about it, John. That is such a problem I encounter on a monthly basis.
Yeah, but you know what I'm saying? It could be that they need to collapse the system and get rid of cash because there is so much, with quotes around it, cash in the world that it needs to be converted to something else.
Digital.
Something that they
Pull
can
it
control
out of
digitally.
the supply. Pull it out of the supply and we'll give you digits. I mean,
Yeah.
That's essentially what's going on with this civil forfeiture. Have you been following these where cops are just pulling you over and taking your stuff and they don't have to prove anything? They just hold on to it for years and years until you get tired or die?
I don't know what they're thinking, but let me ask you this. Do you think that it's an accident that France, Germany, Italy are all being England are all being swamped with refugees and immigrants, mostly from sub-Saharan Africa? Do we think that if we wanted to push Italy over the cliff too, that, I mean, they're over there raising hell right now, that why is Italy the country that is having to bear the brunt of this outrageously high number of people that are coming into the country illegally? I mean, it's beyond belief. Why is this being allowed to happen? You tell me that the navies and the various security services just can't stop this. It's because it's wanted. It's because this huge influx of immigrants will prompt a collapse.
It'll
the prompt a collapse. The Mexican influx here will prompt a collapse in America, and it will. And the influx of undocumented, non-productive, needy immigrants coming into these other countries, it's going to prompt a collapse there.
It's the Cloward and Piven strategy.
Because it's wanted.
Yeah,
Sorry,
it's fine. I'm too far away from the mic. It's the Cloward and Piven strategy of collapsing the system from the inside, so that when you rebuild it in your image. Your goal, your stated goal, your intent, your purpose, your game plan, everything that you're intending to do is to destroy and then rise up like a phoenix from the ashes as the savior. That's exactly what this strategy is called, and we're seeing it almost everywhere.
And look at Russia. Russia's not buying it.
So is Putin the good guy?
They keep trying to start a brawl with him. They keep trying to start a brawl with Putin.
So is he the good guy? Now here's where it gets weird. Who do we root for? Rowdy Roddy Piper just died today. Condolences to friends and family.
Definitely.
But if you watch wrestling, and I'm not bidding condolences to Hulk Hogan's friends and family for 8 years ago, he said something like Paula Deen, apparently. But anyway, this is kind of how it's going right now. Do we pick the good side or do we pick the bad side? Do we pick the hero or the heel? It's a wrestling match. Is Obama the good guy? Is Obama the bad guy? Is Putin the good guy? Is Putin the bad guy? We really have to take a look at our leadership with the McCains and the Grahams and the Pelosi's and the Harry Reids and the John Boehners and the John McCains and all the go-along to get-along New World Order loving fools. Are they the good guys since we don't like any of them? Or is the other side possibly accidentally on the right side with this particular issue? That's something that's a little tricky for me to describe, John.
Well, I don't think there are any good guys. I don't think that any of them are being put in the position of being a good guy because, I mean, I admire Putin for trying to keep his country out of trouble and for not putting up with stuff from the West. But I mean, I don't admire him to the point where I'd want to get it on with the Russians. You know what I mean? Meaning, by supporting him, we could actually be aiding in the effort to create a problem with him. Does that make sense?
Okay, so if we support him too much, that will give too much credence and power and weight and influence to the fact that we would then have to oppose him, which would then get the opposition which we were trying to avoid in the first place by supporting him. So we should just go all in and oppose him, knowing that that will be too much force and we won't be able to start something with him so we can defeat him that way. Maybe.
That's pretty much it. I mean, nothing is linear. It all with all of these dealings with these various world powers. There's what they want us to think is happening. There's what they present and report to us as actually happening, and then there is what is really happening. And they go to great lengths to see to it that we don't know about these things. That's why all these revelations of everything from Pearl Harbor to the Gulf of Tonkin to the Kennedy assassination and everything else, that's why by the time this information comes out, everybody's so jaded on it they don't really care. It doesn't matter if it comes out as long as we're far enough down the road to where, those people are gone, and those deals are done, and things have changed since then, so nobody's culpable. All you have to do is look at a bank like HSBC, who got popped for, laundering money.
Did the feed get slow for just a second. Hang on. Occasionally, there's been once or twice where oh, there you are. You were talking about HSBC, and then your line just went silent for about 12 seconds. That was rad.
No, I'm not surprised, man. Listen, the thing is I'm not making this up either. You can't believe the phenomena that we deal with on our phones and computers and everything else. It's pretty strange.
John, I mentioned it earlier in the program. If they just go back through the archives and check out our interviews over the past 3 years or so, you're going to find a lot of episodes where the telephone lines, the gremlins exist with you, but almost not with anybody else. You know, so I don't know if I don't know how it's working, but yeah, there are digital gremlins. And just imagine an EMP attack if you didn't have any of your stuff by your side. You know what I mean? Could you imagine not being prepared and all the communications are down, no money's out, all of the traffic is stopped, none of the lights are working, all the grocery stores are emptied. Could you imagine how quickly that would devolve into something ridiculous?
It wouldn't take very long. You know, it's funny when I was over in Western Europe and I was in the Netherlands, but this is some years ago, and I had a big trance show over there called Sensation. I worked with those people.
Yep, happened again. John, you still there? Oh, you can't make this stuff up. You just can't. Yeah, I think John needs to get a new...
Okay.
Yeah, you were talking about something in France with the festival, but I really think you need to get another dude in to do a security sweep of your property. Some sort of tech... something that can check out your lines, can check out all of your signal flow. I feel like you got a bug over there, brother.
Well, yeah, I could tell you a lot of stuff that you probably better not.
We've talked about it. No, we've talked about it a little bit. I'm just saying it's incredible. It's like every time we get into something that I don't know, maybe that's not the topic we should focus on. We get a little gremlin.
Well, I like to tell this story just because it's so ridiculous, but what are the chances of blowing 2 ISDN cards at the central office? For people that don't know, ISDN's been around since the mid-'90s, and it's just you just have a pair of telephone lines, and they run on one cord, much like a 2-line cord. It's a 2-line box. You put it in a rack space. It's 2 inches, two rack space thick in your little control room there. And run your mic into your mixer, and then from your mixer into this thing, and you send it out. That's how I used to do the show with Coast to Coast. That's how everybody does it. And they still use ISDN. Well, you have to have a card down in the central office. Now, I hadn't blown one in 20 years or so. But working on Coast, I blew 2 easily within a 6-month period. I remember one night we tried to do it over the phone, and it just wasn't happening.
I think I remember that episode because you were once a week. Now halfway through you started doing Fridays and Saturdays and Sundays. You were doing like 2-day weekends and occasional 3-day weekend, I think.
Yeah, one time I covered George Norrie from Tuesday through Saturday. That was quite a trip. That was a great deal of fun. It really was. Listen, I had more fun on Coast to Coast. That was just an absolute dream job. It really was. I loved working on that program. But I also knew that it wasn't me who was picking the guests all the time. Now, sometimes I would, but or we put together like that rock and roll special where we had Paul Rogers and Jack Cassidy and Leslie West from Mountain and Ian Anderson from Jethro Tull, each of them on for an hour. I mean, that was amazing. But some of the other people would come on, like just whistleblowers and people that had controversial information. We would just experience all kinds of stuff, just all kinds of crazy stuff. And it was not, and I checked with one of the tech guys down there, and I don't want to say who it is, but it's somebody who would be in a position to either know or find out. And he said, no, it's definitely interference from an external source. Let's just leave it at that. And that's what he told me. So I guess that's how it is.
Well, I mean that's kind of what earned you the reputation, and it's kind of what helped introduce you to such a large audience that followed you to Caravan to Midnight. And you know, as we get wrapping this up here, John, it's It's interesting because you mentioned the spiritual battle. You mentioned, the ultimate battle between good and evil. We're talking ancient aliens. I mean, we're down the Coast to Coast AM rabbit hole like you wouldn't believe. It's like any topic under the sun, from portals to aliens to, nothing is off limits. But I mean, what I've seen over the past couple weeks, I'm a guy that grew up pro-life. I got to college, I met people that had their situations, and I could imagine myself in the shoes of somebody else, and I kind of went socially libertarian. In fact, if you'll give me a second, I want to set this up so I don't screw up the words. I accidentally typed it kind of perfect on our Agree to Disagree Facebook group, and if you guys aren't following it, just do a search for Agree to Disagree on Facebook. We have a private group, and I said this. I said, I strongly support the preventative care that Planned Parenthood provides. Condoms, the pill, STD screenings, etc. strongly. Now, the killing of unborn children just because it would be inconvenient to let the kid be born, I don't like that at all. But after meeting some people who did have an abortion, I could try to put myself in the shoes of a scared 15-year-old who had made a bad decision. I understand, even though I don't personally support. Now, what seems like something out of a Saw movie, selling harvested little chopped up baby parts, it kind of puts it into perspective. The practice of convenient abortion as birth control is barbaric, and if seeing graphic pictures and hearing callous conversation is what it takes for us as humans to stop turning a blind eye to it, so be it. I'm a libertarian on most social issues, so I'm not pushing to overturn Roe v. Wade or shut down Planned Parenthood. But public tax dollars should not go to them anymore. Too many people have moral objections to at least half of the stuff that they do. I wanted to read that verbatim because I really didn't want to screw it up, because it really is one of those things. It's one of those horrible issues, and I think it's like you said. You ask, friends come up, oh, do you really want to know what I'm doing? Do you really want to go down the rabbit hole? And they go, no, I'm doing okay. No, I don't want to talk about it. Abortion is, unfortunately or fortunately, it's one of those topics people just don't want to talk about. And as we start wrapping this up, John, you talked about the ultimate battle between good and evil. I called those videos that I've been seeing, the exposés on Planned Parenthood, as being demonic. I don't see any other way to describe it other than demonic. They're hovered over chopped up baby parts, discussing Lamborghinis and wine and food and how much money they can make. And I'm telling you, I feel like I'm in a bad dream, or this whole life is a joke. It doesn't seem like this would really happen on a planet that I inhabited. I'll toss the entire subject over to you, wondering where you wanted to take this, because I felt like it fit into that ultimate battle between good and evil for me, and maybe it did for you as well.
Well, I can tell you this. I don't like to make unfortunate comparisons, but you may remember in one of Adolf Hitler's speeches, everybody was lined up with shovels because they didn't have rifles. They wouldn't let them have them in those days when he was giving his speeches. And he told the people out there, these throngs of people, that no one would ever stand where he is that had not been there where they are. And now, I'm not going to say that I've ever, lived rough, meaning like be a homeless guy, with my little cart full of stuff. But I've seen I've heard the gurgle of the swamp, and I've heard the screech of the eagle. And so, if I say to people, look, you need to get hold of your faith, and when you do, you will recognize the worth in yourself. When you do this, when you stop investing all of your attention and all of your energies into things of the world, the trinkets, the clothes, the cars, the clubs, all of this stuff that is just distraction. Got a big screen TV, need a bigger screen TV. When you turn toward faith, you will cease to be deluded by the images that meet your eyes now. Once you look through the veneer of your reality here, you will find that despite the fact that they've tarted it up a little bit and made it look very modern, it is muy suave y rico and just wonderful. It is still the same basic forces that have been dealt with by mankind from the beginning. Instead of sackcloth, you're wearing shark skin or whatever, whatever it happens to be. I mean, I'm just grabbing for those. I don't even know if anybody wears shark skin suits anymore. But I think they're still out there. But anyway.
I want to get one because on a previous show, you and I talked about, tinfoil sombreros. And that was something that people commented. They said, hey, I want to order a tinfoil sombrero, maybe with a shark skin suit. We could get that. That'd be fun.
You know, the thing that's funny is that it seems like it might not be a bad idea.
I'm thinking, like, that's a pretty snazzy outfit, man.
I think maybe more like a tinfoil ski mask would be really more us, you know what I mean? But
I like that. Tinfoil ski mask. Maybe Anonymous would be able to employ those somewhere. Maybe Occupy LA or Occupy Wall Street. Or maybe the next one, it'll be some superhero battle like Ants or Superman.
I mean, when you consider that a bunch of high-ranking Catholic priests and heads of various dioceses got together for a secret exorcism of the entire country of Mexico, you say, well, these are either a bunch of really whacked-out priests or they felt very strongly about the necessity to do this because we see things on TV. You know, I mean, look at Game of Thrones. It's like, wow, look at her. She just got killed. I can see her guts and everything. It's like, why in the hell are you showing people this stuff? Why is there so much, really rough sex and really graphic murders? Hell, the murders that they portray on TV are 10 times more graphic than an actual murder. And it's almost as though they just really want you to get to like it. And all this stuff about, blood-sucking vampires and Walking Dead and all this. It's like, what is the motivation behind all this? Is it like the Day of the Dead celebrations that they have, in Latin America and various places, Mexico and so forth, where
Dia de los
they
Muertos.
sort of do this to purge their fear of death. They just sort of celebrate it because they know it's coming anyway. In other words, these things that have been spoken of, human sacrifices and bloodlust and worshiping and all kinds of idolatry and worshiping of demons and so forth, well, you can't have one without the other. You can't have the devil without having God. You can't have Christ without having Antichrist. You can't have angelic without having demonic. I mean, the Orientals figured this out a long time ago, the Chinese, with yin and yang. You got the light side, you got the dark side. It says in Scripture, I, the Lord, create the light and the darkness. I, the Lord, create good and evil. I, the Lord, do all these things. Well, why would somebody write this? I mean, why would somebody just decide, I'm going to write an amazing screenplay? I mean, why would they do this? Why would they leave the book of Giants out of the Bible for quite a long time? Well, because somebody didn't want the majority of the population to know that at one time giants did roam the earth. They really did. Well, why should I care about that? If you have to ask that question, then there's really no point in answering it. You're going to have to find out why you should be interested in it on your own.
Yeah, you're just going to have to think this through a little bit. You got like 11-foot Anunnaki, you got giants, you got red-haired creatures, you got Bigfoot, you have aliens, you have everything across the board. The Incas, the Aztec, the Maya, all the human sacrifices throughout time. Like I said earlier, go back to Lemuria and Atlantis. Seriously, if we got to explain this, you got to really kind of recalibrate where you're coming from, or maybe you never had some sort of religious background to go, oh, wait, hold on, that's connected to all of this somehow. Hang on, I got this. No, I'll get it. It's not a big stretch to kind of think that this is something on a very large scale. I had no idea about this Mexico story. I pulled it up. This is just from like a month and a week ago. I just want to read this because I hadn't heard about this, and I don't know why I didn't hear about it because I consume so much damn media content.
It's because there's so much out there, man.
This thing says...
I mean, if you go through all the news services that are out there and read everything, you'll be insane by the end of the week.
I feel insane anyway. That's why I'm drinking a little Kentucky bourbon right now, buddy. You can stick to your tea and what have you, but a little bit of Kentucky bourbon after this week. No, I didn't catch this story, and this is an interesting one, so I looked it up while he was talking, and it says, believing that their predominantly Roman Catholic nation is at the mercy of demons, priests from all over Mexico gathered in the Cathedral of San Luis Potosi last month to perform exorcism rites to expel the demons, the first time such ritual was done for an entire country. quote, "The exorcism performed in San Luis Potosi is the first ever carried out in Mexico in which the exorcists came from different parts of the country and gathered together to exorcise the powers of darkness, not from a person, but from the whole country," end quote, said Spanish demonologist and exorcist Father Jose Antonio Fortea, who participated in the exorcism, the Catholic News Agency reported. I hadn't heard that one. I just tweeted it out. I just put it on Facebook. I hadn't heard that before, and I'll tell you what, man, I've been seeing, whether it's the drought in California, whether it's some of these murders or cop shootings or just weird, disgusting, bizarre stuff that we're seeing in the news, I've seen the cloud that came over us, and I've been seeing the cloud covering the sunlight for a long time. I know that the sunlight's going to poke through sooner or later, but, I mean, it's been palpable, the amount of negative, demonic, insert negative adjective here. I've felt this cloud over us at least since 9/11, and I haven't felt it let up. I mean, is that kind of what you're talking about with this battle between good and evil?
Well, yeah, but more than that, you must understand that these people who are in power really do participate in what we would look at as really kooky, like black magic rituals. They really do. They do the robes. They do that stuff. They do strange things. They put people in coffins. They do make them perform certain acts of sexuality that they wouldn't ordinarily perform. And whether or not they allow this, because the participants allow this to happen to them because they want to get in the club and they want to be connected people, and they don't really mean it. It's like, it's too bad. You went through the ritual and you're in. So whether you want to be part of it or not, you are a part of it now. And let me tell you what, if you want some real trouble, look deeply into Skull and Bones. I would advise, if you have any significant development in your sense of self-preservation, that's one outfit that you might want to handle gingerly, because those are some serious cats. You have to understand, folks, these people don't care about human life. They don't care at all, not a bit. Do you think anybody gives a damn about collateral damage, that they blew up a few kids and some women and a couple of goats and dog and some little girl's favorite cat and all this other stuff because they were nailing a terror suspect with a drone?
Nope.
Do you think they care?
Nope.
They don't care. They don't give a as Glenn Beck would say. This is about the only thing I quoted Glenn Beck. They don't give a flying crap about it. They don't. They couldn't care less. It's just part of the deal. They're not interested in anything except acquiring and maintaining and gaining more power. That's all they care about. And since it is stated in Scripture that, yes, it is in fact Satan that runs the planet, there's no contradiction to that in the Bible. This place is run by the dark forces. That's it. You transcend the power of these dark forces with faith. If you don't believe me, that's fine, but I would advise people to look into it. I mean, I'm not a preacher, but I'll tell you this. I have seen enough irrefutable evidence in my own life that I cannot turn away from it. And it is not because I am afraid of something, because the things that are written about in Scripture are not about bondage and enslavement. It is about freedom. But many people simply do not want to be free. They don't.
That's the weirdest damn thing to me. That is, I don't know if we're just hardwired differently, or we're lucky or cursed, or a portion of all of these, but I just can't even understand that mentality, John.
It's because you are one who is not going to be okay with everybody being equal. Everybody being just like everybody else. Being just like everybody else is exactly the same thing as being nobody. And people don't get it.
A slave or an automaton or just a cog in a machine, another brick in the wall. I mean, Pink Floyd sang about this stuff, didn't they? Just another brick in the wall.
Let's get controversial here for a minute.
I like it.
You have people now. Do we have a few minutes here?
As much as you feel like, brother.
Here's the thing. Now, let me try and keep this linear, because this is about the whole homosexual agenda and all of that, all right? Once upon a time, people knew what the 4th of July was celebrated for. But now, they don't. Mark Dice goes out on the street with his camera and, He just allows people to make idiots of themselves all the time. But the idiotic antics are emblematic of the mentality of entire society. So once upon a time, you have there's the antique fire engine, there's the high school band, and now here's a parade float with the children that we're supposed to be doing all of this for, our progeny, which will inherit problems or successes that we, their parents, bring about, either
that we
failure
set up
or
for
success.
them. Yeah, we hand them the baton, whether good or bad.
Okay, now you don't really see that anymore. What you see, for example, this Jewish guy just got out of prison. He was in for 10 years for stabbing some people at a gay pride parade, okay? He's an ultra-Orthodox Jew, right? He gets out and he stabs 6 more people just like yesterday or something during a gay pride parade in Jerusalem. A gay pride parade in Jerusalem.
Wow.
And somebody's lamenting this. I don't think he killed anybody, but he came close. To my knowledge, there were no fatalities, but some people got really screwed up. And one guy was on the sidewalk in this picture, and this dude looks like Freddie Mercury, He's got that mustache. He looks like an English officer from the old days. He's got that kind of coconut face, He's all
The big,
buffed
does he
and
have
all
the
that
big
stuff,
horse teeth? Does he have the big horse teeth, though?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, gotcha.
And then there's another guy with, the rock-hard abs, and he's got his shirt off, and they're assisting this guy on the ground. And the statement was, wow, what a drag. I'm paraphrasing slightly, but the salient point is that these people were just celebrating their freedom and their individuality. It's like individuality, you are a group. You are a group of people. You are not individuals. You are part of a group. So as long as we have this abort a child, but adopt a dog mentality, all these ridiculous agendas, there are gay people all over this world, but let's just stick with the country. There are gay people all over this country who are absolutely disgusted with Barack Obama and his rainbow lights on the White House, this whole Supreme Court decision, this whole gay marriage thing. But we don't hear from gay people who are like, look, we really don't need this politicization of this lifestyle. And most will agree that it is a lifestyle. Most will tell you that I wasn't born this way, something happened to me when I was a kid, or I had this, or I had that, or whatever, something happened. Now, maybe some people are just naturally, genetically, they just got things got a little bit mixed up there, and they kind of split the difference on them. That's fine. Things happen in nature like that. It's fine. They're entitled to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But all of these things are being turned into some sort of a political engine, and it's wrong to do it. By doing that, they don't realize that by doing this, you have now denied them any individuality that they might otherwise be proud of or want to celebrate. One of the articles that came out, I want to say it was in the New York Times, was that being gay has lost its specialness. And the drift was, before, when we were kind of oppressed, when people thought they didn't really accept us, but they were okay, we had to fight harder and create more and be more and band together, and it was, kind of us against them and all that, and there was a sense of togetherness in this. But now, and I said it on the program, I said, okay, well, supposedly you got what you supposedly wanted, so how does it feel to be normal? Because the law says you're normal. So do you feel better or worse? And the consensus is that gay people really don't feel better about it at all. They think that too big of a deal has been made of it, and it has been. Are you still there, or did the phone dump us again?
Right here with you.
Okay, good. So we're being played. These people are just playing us. And I think the only way that we're going to make any progress, stave off any disaster or anything else, and the fact is we may just have to ride it out at this point. I do not believe. I believe that I believe the people by and large have given up on the civilization, and they sense that it's going to be a rough transition into what's ahead. But with all these revelations that have come forward, how many people? I mean, there are some out there kicking ass. I mean, like John W. Whitehead of Rutherford Institute. They're filing lawsuits and trying to stick up for people and trying to right wrongs and undo unconstitutional legislation, all kinds of things. But how many people out there are, of the million people that are listening to your show, you'd be doing good if you get 1% that will take any action. Look at the dismal voting record. It's in the 40 percentile somewhere.
Less than half, yeah.
So, what does that tell you?
Well, did you happen to
most
see?
Most people just don't want to be involved.
Did you happen to see Edward Snowden get interviewed by last week tonight? What's that guy's name? I can see him. John Oliver. He used to be on the Daily Show, and then he filled in when Jon Stewart was gone for a while. Now he does that last week tonight on. But yeah, I mean, he did the same thing. He had an interview John Oliver did with Edward Snowden, and he was talking about, how do you feel about this? And you're in exile, and Edward Snowden's like, hey, it's just great to know, even though I'm going through this, at least all of America's awake to this right now. And John Oliver goes, oh, really? Well, we went to New York, or wherever they went, some big city, to see what people knew about you. Here's what they said. And like they said, Edward Snowden, they go, I don't know who that is. Nope, doesn't ring a bell. Oh, is he the WikiLeaks guy? And they kind of showed, like, buddy, you think people are awake now because of that? Some of them are, but a lot of them are not. And then they turned it around and said, they asked the same people that didn't know Snowden to say, did you know that it's now possible for people to see your dick pics that you send to, like, a significant other? And they're asking all these guys, they're like, what? What? You mean the NSA's getting a hold of my dick pics? And just kind of like laughing at it with Edward Snowden, saying like, look, they're not paying attention to the Fourth Amendment. They're just concerned if their junk gets copied somewhere at the NSA, and they didn't know that was even happening. So, I mean, I think there is a large percentage of our country that really doesn't pay any damn bit of attention. The only question is, which portion is going to dominate in 2016 for the next presidency? Is it going to be a group of informed voters that actually care, or is it going to be people more concerned about dick pics than destroying the Fourth Amendment?
Well, it's not entirely their fault. I mean, the society is brought down to a level of coarseness that hasn't been seen for, I don't know if it's ever been seen. You have one university, I want to say it was the University of New Hampshire, one of them, has got certain words like American and, I mean, all kinds of stuff that are problematic words. They want everything to be more inclusive. So what you have basically is a bunch of people who have been robbed of an education because the federal government is involved in their education. Therefore, they're not getting much of one. And it's all about attitudes. It's not about academics. It's about attitudes now. And you have the idiots like Al Gore out there claiming that polar bears are on tiny pieces of ice because our SUVs are causing the planet to heat, and then of course they jet off in some 400-gallon-an-hour aircraft, to
just
go to
like Hillary.
Their next meeting. I mean, the hypocrisy just runs so deep; it's extraordinary. And the people who are not receiving much of an education, I mean, they're teaching sex education way too early, and they're putting the kids' attention on stuff like that, and operating a computer. Somebody even told me that they felt that cursive writing was elitist.
No, it's even better than that, John. You know what I heard last week? I heard the cursive thing I also heard you can't say peanut butter and jelly because that's now racist, according to some idiot. And then cursive writing is being phased out because everything's typewritten. There is no writing in school anymore. It's all typing. All of it is digital. But I heard this. I heard there's a growing portion of our country that looks at a clock and they don't know what time it is. If it's not digital format, they don't know what time it is. They look at the hands and the wheels and the gears and the ticks and the dashes, and they go, I don't know.
Last week, I talked with one adult who could not tell me the answer to this question, and my son overheard two people talking, a man and a youngish man and a youngish woman, talking about his work as he's a wildlife activist kind of guy, but I mean, not one who walks around with a sign trying to get, fair play for, the seals or anything. He repatriates snakes, for example, back to their turf of origin. He relocates mussels and gets that stuff going there. None of these people knew what ocean it was that splashes up on the eastern beach of Florida.
Whoa.
And then the woman said, she's not very good at topography. It's like, well, it's not topography, it's geography, not topography. So
at dictionary.
That's what you're dealing with. You're dealing with a bunch of people that put in the time and made the grades, but they didn't learn a damn thing.
Jeez.
I mean, they don't. And now with this, but look, it is all coordinated. It is all coordinated toward control. And I don't want to just rant and rave and just make everybody sick of it. Trust me, I'm sick of it. But what happened with this Trans-Pacific Partnership is that they have now globalized the workforce. So you'll be trained for a specific job, and you'll be sent there to do that job. That's the way it will be. Why is there no jobs training for the tens of millions of black people who would like a job?
The veterans,
Because we don't train for jobs that don't exist. And they're not going to exist because robotics will take it over. That's the whole thing. It says the love of money is the root of all evil. I said this on Coast to Coast. Let's see. If you want to cut down on maternity leave, vacation time, sick leave, overtime, did I mention vacation time? Holiday time? I know. Fire all these SOBs and get me in some robots here that can do these jobs, and I'll have a tech come in once a month and make sure they're running right, and just fire all these people. Just get them out of here. That's what's happening. If there would be any reason, what possible reason could they have for wanting to wipe out a huge swath of the population? Answer, if we have machines do better what human beings did before, we don't need the humans, but then we have all the humans, so what can we do about them? They're going to want something. I know. We'll get rid of a bunch of them. So some moron sets up the Georgia Guidestones. Oh, the Georgia Guidestones, they want to cut it down to 500 million. Wonder who did that. And we know the Stone Company, and we know, that there are allegations about who put it up, but who did that? Who decided it would be a good idea to make a 1-ton statue of Baphomet, the goat man, with a little boy and a little girl? One boy, a little boy on one side of him, a little girl on the other side, looking up, like in awe of Goat Man. And they want to, they got it unveiled in Detroit. Now they want to bring it down to Oklahoma to protest these damn theocrats, and they're imposing any kind of religion on us. We want to worship Goat Man. Well, the problem is that these moron idiots are serious.
I saw that.
It's a problem. It's a problem.
I've been seeing that story for like 2 years about this statue to Satan. For years.
Oh, yeah, you got to get rid of the 10 Commandments in Judge Moore's court.
Well, I mean, John...
All he's trying to tell you is if you're in this courtroom for breaking one of these rules, and there's only 10 of them, and if you'll just kind of go by them, you'll probably be in front of a judge a lot less. Don't be killing or stealing or lying or cheating or doing any of that stuff, But, oh, no, that's got to go because that's violation of church and state. Oh, really? So you're telling me that you get married by having if you're Catholic or if you're a Protestant, if you're a Christian, in other words, or a Buddhist or a Hindu, and I'm pretty sure a Muslim, they're going to go to their holy book and they're going to read some passages from it that have to do with the wedding of a man and a woman. So if the Supreme Court inserting itself into this gay marriage decision and deciding that, yes, this marriage is legal for all over the United States and you will marry them, if that's not a violation of church and state, I don't know what is. Because the Supreme Court, in my opinion, should never have taken up that case.
It's that one is absolutely a weird one. I've heard on the opposite side of it that you might see conceal carry reciprocity or constitutional carry reciprocity flooded through the liberal states now, saying, "Hey, we have a Second Amendment right to self-defense. All of these laws, you got to throw them out. You have to honor that there's constitutional carry rights. If you're whatever it is, 18 years old." And whatever, you have the right to carry a gun, and you don't need to pay money for licensing. You don't need to beg for acceptance. You don't need to push paperwork and wait so that you can be saved before you can save yourself. Like, that might be the upside to all of this. I don't know if that'll actually turn out, but yeah, I mean, the Supreme Court is way more powerful now than I think the founders ever intended.
You know, everybody, I'm an older guy now, so that's just the way it is. And all of the older guys look back on the prior generation. We're told, and have the same complaints about youth that I would have about youth now, but it's just not true. When I was in the 7th grade, our parents would drop us off over to a friend's house, and we'd take a .22 rifle, and we'd go out in the woods, and we'd stay gone for hours. But here's the thing. We didn't shoot at each other with them. We didn't kill stuff with them. We didn't destroy property with them. We didn't shoot at cars, on the highway. We didn't do any of that because we realized and we believed and understood that having a firearm was being permitted to have a .22 rifle was a gesture of trust that we were responsible enough and moral enough not to use this potentially deadly weapon rather than just a target rifle for plinking. We had a responsibility to behave properly with this rifle. In those days, if you got suspended from school for 3 days or you were sent home or something, you would much rather have your backside whacked 3 or 5 times. That seemed to be, you either get 2 if the teacher really didn't have his heart in it, or you get 3 from the coach, which was enough to curl your hair, or you get 5 if you really pissed them off, okay? You dreaded meeting your parents much more than that paddling. These paddles were serious. These things were like 2.5 feet long and about 1 inch thick, and I mean, some of them were just like sculpted down in the wood shop, and nobody wanted to have their rump beat with one of these things. But I got to tell you something. You just didn't screw up beyond a certain point because that was going to happen. So, well, you mean you behaved because of the fear of physical pain? Yeah, but worse than that, there was going to be even more physical pain when my parents found out about it, which they will find out about it, and there's going to be more pain and restrictions and everything else when I get home. But now it's like, just do what you want. I mean, 2 or 3 actors out there that they've managed to amount to something. They've gone through rehab and everything else, still fighting with it. Their parents, their fathers are sitting down doing blow with them and stuff like this. It's like, what's wrong with you? Or giving them LSD or smoking pot with them or something. And it's up to these people to either make it or not because they've already been introduced into the dark side of the world. Once you get to the point where you need a drug, and it's in that drugged state, whatever it is, whether it's pot every day or whether it's LSD or mushrooms or any of this other stuff that they're doing, DMT or whatever, blow, heroin, all this. The reason people are going to heroin now is because it's cheaper than the pain pills that, they just can't find a doctor that'll give a prescription for it. Now they're hooked on it. And somebody made money on all of those transactions, no matter what they're doing. It's like, what we have is a decaying civilization that we could salvage, but I do not believe that the will is there to do it.
So if the will isn't there to do it, and everybody's hopped up on oxycodone and all the SSRIs and all the other chemical cocktails and the GMO foods and the fluoride, in the water. Okay, so we see this kind of careening into the crash of the wall, John. Is the society ready to kind of get their act together, or are we just going to keep doing it? I just got to probe you one more time to get your final thoughts on this as we start wrapping this up. The Planned Parenthood thing, man. I have avoided this subject so much. I have gone out of my way to just try to say I'm libertarian. I don't want to get into these social issues. It's like I personally have my thing here, but like I've had conversations. I've known people that have gone through this, and I can at least get it. And if we have to meet our maker and kind of plead our case in front of the judge one day, you tell your story, I'll tell mine, and who knows what mine would have been if they were in your shoes. I get it, but these videos from Planned Parenthood, man, I'm having a hard time calling them anything other than demonic about just chopping up baby parts. It feels like a horror movie, and I want to make sure I get your full opinion on that one topic before I let you go.
The other part of it is that, talking about those parades, I think I can answer it best maybe this way, Brian.
All right.
Why don't we have what about I'm heterosexual and damned proud of a parade? Behold our women. They have ample breasts. They have wide hips, which will make childbirth comfortable for them. They are so fertile that children literally fall out from under their skirts as they walk down the street. And the men, look how strong they are. Hell, they wear cod pieces, because not to wear cod pieces, no matter what kind of pants they were wearing, there'd still be TMI. And when they get together, what it is it's where ultimate fertility meets ultimate potency, and we produce these beautiful children, and it's wonderful. They will go forward. They are our future. We will die. They will go forward. You're not ever going to see a parade like that. You're never going to see a fertility parade. I don't believe it.
I don't know. It sounds kind of like a blur between Sturgis this year, Woodstock in '99,
Yep.
Burning Man every year.
But you see what I'm saying? Let's celebrate homosexuality, but let's not celebrate heterosexuality, because that's just a given that's what happens. But if you get pregnant and it's inconvenient, just go to the clinic and have your baby vacuumed out. Abortion is a reality. Abortion is killing your child, and that's all there is to it. Whether it's a little dot because it hasn't even become a fetus yet, or whether it's it looks kind of like a person, and then some dumbass who's the all-knowing oracle of everything says, well, it's not really human life until a certain number of weeks have gone by. It's like, that's total BS.
Who's
man.
the
It's
arbiter of
life.
that?
It's a child.
Who's the arbiter of that? I'll just pick this particular random date, whatever trimester, whatever week, landmark. That's just arbitrary. And I know they're trying really hard to walk a balance there, but it's a rough issue, man. It's a rough issue, and these videos are they're just horrible, man. I feel like I'm in a
two-edged sword, Brian.
movie.
It's like, well, yes, the woman has the right to choose. Yes, she does. Hell, it's legal and everything. Okay, fine. The reality is you have been given legal clearance and the facilities that will enable you to kill your child, and that's all it is. I mean, you can call it abortion, you can call it pregnancy termination, you can call it Planned Parenthood, but what it is, and that's fine. You can call it the romper room if you want. I don't care what you call it. The fact is, you're killing your child. Period. End of story. If you did not have this procedure, you would probably go to full term, barring some medical issue, and a child would come into the world. That's it. You stop that from happening. Well, what does that mean? It means you killed your child. If you're okay with it, okay. That's between you and God. That's not between you and me at all. But I'll tell you this. The government should not pay for this.
To actually ask me and a lot of people that I know to subsidize that stuff, it's beyond criminal. It's
You're not being asked. It's being demanded of you. You will subsidize it.
Yes, it's being forcibly removed from our hands that would rather let you pry this money from our cold dead hands than support this type of behavior. Yeah.
The money is what they want. People are expendable. The money isn't. The money is what enables them. The vast amounts of money is what makes everything possible. How can anybody really in their right mind, conscience, taking these exotic aircraft and these exotic weapons and using them to just blow the crap out of human beings, that they've been sent to kill these people that they don't know by some putz like McCain and the rest of these twats up there that you don't know. So a guy that you don't know sends you to go and kill some other people that you don't know. And they wonder why they're coming back with PTSD, and immediately they put them on SSRIs. My friend went into a hospital. He was feeling pretty bad. He's a great big old thing, too. I mean, he's not fat. He's just huge. He looks like Neptune. And he had like 20 pounds of fluid on his chest, so they pumped all that out. And And, he recovered. It was all right. They corrected everything. He's fine. He's going to live, right? So his doctor calls him in and asks him, well, how are you feeling? He goes, I feel a little rough, really. And he goes, well, yeah. He goes, well, what's the problem? He goes, well, nobody likes to have a heart problem. He said, well, are you depressed about it? He goes, well, I don't know, maybe a little, I guess. So what does he do? He writes him a prescription for antidepressants. I talked to him a few days after he'd been prescribed this, and I said, how are you feeling? He said, well, I know the truth. I feel like bleep. And what you do, what's up? And he goes, let me tell you something. And he told me that story, and I said, look, you need to stop taking those immediately. I said, you need to call your doctor and tell them they're not agreeing with you, you don't like this, you feel terrible and you want off, and then back off of those slowly, because it might hurt you if you just quit them. You might have to cut them down. How long have you been taking them? He said, 4 or 5, I guess about a week. And I went, that's probably not long enough for them to really get their hooks in you.
Right.
But if I were you, I would go on for another week at a half dosage, and then after that, you'll probably be all right. If you feel better, then you can probably just let them go completely. But tell your doc that you're going to do this, and he might tell you if there's going to be any blowback from stopping them. And he did, and I talked to him a couple of weeks later. I said, how you feel? He goes, I feel about like I did before I had any problems. I feel fine.
Jeez.
They will prescribe that stuff to you for anything. I got one more story for you. There was a buddy of mine. This guy smoked weed like I could not believe.
I knew
Seriously,
a few of these guys
I went up
in
to
college.
California to visit him. I couldn't believe it. I wanted to take the bong away from him and smack him with it and throw it out into the middle of the pool. Well, I figured out what had happened. He had had an injury in a motorcycle crash.
Okay.
And what they did was and this is just another example. He visited a friend of his that was a neighbor, and the man had gone in for a simple procedure and he just died. And it freaked my friend out so bad that he just passed out. And if you've ever seen anybody pass out, sometimes they'll convulse a little bit, just from fainting. They don't just necessarily go limp. Sometimes they'll twitch around a little bit because their body's going, what the hell just happened? And the brain just went, I'm shutting off, sorry.
Right.
Well, so what do? They give him Depakote. They give him a seizure control medication.
Oh.
Then the doc just asked him, well, are you feeling any anxiety? He goes, well, yeah, I feel anxious sometimes. Now, keep in mind, this guy busted his head in 13 pieces when an illegal alien ran a stoplight in Salt Lake City, cut in front of him on his motorcycle, and launched him up to the height of the traffic light that's swinging there on the wires.
Whoa.
And he lands on his head, okay? So he's messed up. And it says, and here's something else. A little Mormon prayer group came into his hospital room, and they didn't know him, and he didn't know them. And they said a prayer, and everybody stood around in amazement as all of his vital signs began to increase, improve, and otherwise stabilize.
What?
But, take that for what it's worth, but it did happen. There were plenty of witnesses to it. So I said, well, so then what happened? He goes, well, when I told him that I had anxiety, he prescribed me Lexapro. So I got into this, and I thought, what is the one? And he's smoking all this weed, and I'm going, man, this guy is smoking some serious high-powered California bud. You can smell it across the room, and there it is. This looks like a photograph out of High Times. You know what I mean?
Like a Snoop Dogg video, yeah, of course. Snoop line.
So I asked him, do you trust me? And he said, absolutely. I said, for sure. And he goes, with my life. And I said, I would like for you to talk to your doctor and tell him to begin backing you off of the Lexapro and to reevaluate whether you need the anti-seizure medicine, because I think you just freaked out and fainted. And these SOBs will prescribe all the drugs that you're willing to take. I figured out, or at least I theorized, that what's the one thing that people say sometimes when they smoke high-powered weed? They will say, well, it kind of makes me paranoid. This particular strain kind of makes me paranoid. Well, what's another word for paranoid? How about anxiety? Okay.
Anxious, yeah.
What was happening was, because he had that Lexapro in his bloodstream, my theory is that it was demanding, it was really wanting something that would cause it to work. It needed something to counteract, and there wasn't anything. To flip the switch.
Something that flipped the switch on it, maybe.
So he started smoking all this weed to induce the paranoia, the anxiety, so the Lexapro would fight it. And I'll tell you this. It took 30 days for him to back off of this Lexapro, this Depakote, and at the end of 30 days, this guy's weed consumption had dropped to 0.
Oh, he got off that and he was able to get rid of the other stuff.
His body wasn't craving it anymore. and his body was only craving it because he already had an FDA-approved drug in his bloodstream. I mean, that's a true story. You know, if somebody wants to smoke a joint, I'm okay with that. I don't care. It's just that anytime you start doing anything like that, whether you're drinking, I mean, I used to watch The Avengers, and good grief, you know, Steed and Emma Peel, you know, it'd be like brandy in the coffee, and then sherry and biscuits midday, you know, and then wine at lunch, and then, you know, vodka to start, quinoa with a dash in the afternoon, and, of course, drink all night at the club. And I was just going, my God, these people must be pickled all the time. They're just permanently poop-faced, you know. Well, that's not good either. If you're drinking 2 glasses of wine every night, you better watch out, because that stuff could get, if all of a sudden you stop doing that and you crave it. You know, back in the 80s, I got to where I like to go to one of the local restaurants and hang around, you know, hang around with the guys, and plenty of pretty girls that you could talk to if you wanted to, and drink these, you know, these fashion drinks like, you know, White Russians, Colorado Bulldogs, stuff like that, margaritas. But then I realized one day when I was driving that way at about that time of day that I really was looking forward to a drink. I really was. And I just told myself, yeah, well, you're not getting one. Because I thought to myself, wait a minute, I'm sort of looking forward to this drink a little bit more than usual.
A little too much.
Knock this off.
Yeah.
And so I just quit drinking completely, because I thought, you're going to get into a habit with this if you're not careful, and everybody thinks they're going to be the one that beats it. Well, I can do blow, it won't bother me, or I can smoke pot all day, and I can drink. It's like, yeah, you say that now until it gets its hooks in you, and then you got a problem, and it's a problem. So anyway, I'm not moralizing here. I'm just saying I've been there. That's what I start off with, all the screech of the eagle and gurgle of the swamp. I've been around, and this is not like some lily white dude telling everybody how they should live their lives. I'm just saying you're being played.
No,
you want to make the drug problem go away? Quit taking it. Quit buying it. Who the hell do you think's bringing? If you can't get a joint through the airport, how the hell do you think all this heroin and coke and everything else and weed is getting in the country? With help.
Yeah.
One last thing. Do you remember when the Sinaloa cartel was permitted to fly in a 747 full of blow into American airspace, land and unload in exchange for help against the Zetas? Do you remember that?
What year was this?
That's like 5 or 6 years ago, easily.
I mean, you know, hell, go back to Ali North and Iran-Contra, and go back to Cuba and what the Scarface movie was about, and then 5-6 years ago, your story. Yeah, I mean, we see these things throughout time where you get a glimpse of, oh, wait, our government's the one running the drugs? Why are they doing that?
Well, it's like this, and I guess this will be my Parthian shot. It's like, Mr. and Mrs. America, forget about fiat currency. You are the currency.
Jordan Maxwell. Jordan Maxwell went on, we interviewed him before, and he talked about that, and he was just kind of saying, you know, we are bought and sold as we're born. We're property. We're commodities. We're stocks to be traded. We are a backing on a currency. We are not humans with individual rights and wishes. We are
chattel.
Yeah, we're products.
Well, it's true, man.
And it's frightening when you actually just break it down to the common denominator of we aren't who we think we are. We just get away with what we think we can get away with until we run into a bad situation, and then the whole system, the whole machine just continues with or without us. But it's a little more complicated.
You may not think it's the hip thing to do, and nobody's going to call you a hipster for doing this, but there's 2 things. One of them is go to the Holy Scripture and you'll find out who you are. And secondly, nobody ever was called to be a disciple, to be a follower, who was sitting on their backside underneath a shade tree. Every one of them was working. They were either fishing or they were doing something that was work. The only one that Christ came upon that was sitting under a shade tree, and it's my understanding, was his name was Nathaniel, and he was not invited to be a disciple.
He didn't make the list.
So you cannot just sit there and let the world go by and somehow become convinced that I need is actually you owe me.
The Departed, the movie The Departed with Jack Nicholson. The movie begins, it's a black screen, you haven't even seen anything yet, and Jack Nicholson says, It's a voiceover. Nicholson goes, I don't want to be a product of my environment. I want my environment to be a product of me. And that's how the movie The Departed starts. And it really kind of sums up the attitude. Either you're going to participate in this. You know what? You are participating in this in one way or another. Plato said an indifference to public affairs is a sanction to being ruled by inferior men. Or you could just flip it around and say, hey, if you want to make your own destiny, get to work and get hustling. You know, like either you're going to make your own way or someone's going to make you their play toy at much worse terms. So, you know, I completely agree, John. This whole experience is what we make of it. I don't know what's going to happen in the next month of Jade Helm, if there's another EMP, if there's going to be a currency collapse, some sort of Ebola-generated disease out of some sort of facility somewhere where they're playing with DNA and splicing this and that and the other as a biological weapon. But in the last 30 seconds, man, give us your final statement to everybody and one last pitch over to your website, Caravan to Midnight, would you? And we'll just continue this process as we all find our way to push forward together.
Well, at caravantomidnight.com, you'll find about 350 programs already waiting for you in the archives. $15 for 3 months, 30 for 6, and 60 for 12 months. I let the guests do most of the talking. That will relieve a lot of people. And remember, caravantomidnight.com. Go see some free stuff on the YouTube channel. And don't forget, the best slave is the one who doesn't know he's enslaved. So don't forget it.
Absolutely. John, it's been too long, man. We'll I'll tell you what, you and I, we'll talk again off air once in a couple days when we wind down from this. I appreciate your time as always. You take care, and everybody check out caravantomidnight.com. So for everybody here at the TNAM Radio Network, here at thenewamericanmedia.com, my name's Brian Engelman, saying I appreciate you. I love you. Have a great weekend, and peace.
Hi, everybody. You're listening to Agree to Disagree with Brian Engelman, and this is John B. Wells reminding you that not only is Brian Engelman a cool guy, and not only is thenewamericanmedia.com a very cool platform, but here's a cool idea for you, too. Are you alone? Not really. Do you like dogs? Do you like cats? You do. Of course you do. Everybody does. One or the other, maybe even both. You know, there are a lot of dogs and cats that are at shelters right now, and if somebody doesn't take them home, they're going to wind up euthanized. That's a nice way of saying they're going to be killed because there's simply not enough room. I guarantee it, the best dogs and the best cats, the best pets come from shelters. There's something about dogs and cats. They know. They know where they are. You walk through one of them, and certainly at least one is going to look at you and go, I wish you'd take me home. I'm in hell. Please take me out of here. It'll be the best thing that you ever did for your soul. You'll feel good about it. And not only that, but you have a friend for life. Doesn't matter if you got money, you don't have money. Well, it doesn't make any difference to a dog or cat. All they need is the sound of your voice and maybe even the stroke of your hand, and they're fine. Maybe a little food every once in a while. The sweetest sound that those pets ever hear is your voice. Think it over and adopt a cat or a dog from a local shelter today. I'm telling you, you'll be glad you did.